Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this general policy meeting for the City of Gainesville Commission. Very glad to have many of you with us for a variety of different activities today. And we're going to take a little bit different approach to some of this than we normally do to try to help Commission understand some of what our community organizations do and how you interact with the City of Gainesville. So, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we have the adoption of the agenda.
I move adoption of the agenda as printed and distributed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anyone see no further questions? So all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passed.
And there was
unanimously.
no public comment to that either.
Well, right, and it's, normally we take public comment on agendas when it's the,
Commission.
when
Oh.
it's the consent agenda,
Got
not
it.
so much for regular agendas.
Okay,
but-
thank you for that. Next is the approval of minutes for the March 13th, 2025 General Policy Committee meeting.
I move approval of the minutes from March 13th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as printed and distributed. I see no lights. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passed unanimously as well. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we're on to our business discussion items for the afternoon, 2025-219, informational item. Peaceful Paths Services update with a recommendation. The General Policy Committee hear a services update from Peaceful Paths.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and come on up. I reached out a couple of months ago to Peaceful Paths and to Family Promise to just come talk to us about what they do and how that interacts with what the city does, because I know I don't have a full picture, and I think that's probably true of most of the commission, and it's just a really good opportunity for us to have that interaction. We're not asking anybody to solve any problems today. We just want to have a good open discussion about how we try to solve problems together. So with that, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in today. My name's Crystal Sorrow, and I'm the CEO of Peaceful Paths. I've recently come into this role, so I also wanted to come and introduce myself and just kind of reinvigorate the conversation about what we do in the community. So our mission is to save lives and create change. And the way we look to do that is by providing survivors of domestic violence with increased safety, more supports, both internally and through referrals to other partner organizations, and to create that pathway to self-sufficiency. And so it addresses critical needs when they may be leaving a situation, but also as those needs are met, starting to build long-term goals as they move forward. So today I want you to take away that domestic violence is a pattern, and that pattern's about power and control. And one person in the relationship trying to take power and control away from the other person in the relationship. And that can be through intimidation, it can be through threat, through physical or psychological harm, harassment. And you may hear intimate partner violence used instead of domestic violence in some forums. That's kind of an updated term. There's slightly different legal definitions, but for our purposes, it's a more inclusive term, and it includes dating relationships, past partners as well. So domestic violence is a lot more common than people realize. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will experience it in their lifetimes. 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner, and helplines receive over 20,000 calls a day. So some victim risk factors: nearly 1 in 3 women, as we said, will experience it. And that means the least safe place for women is actually in their own homes. Ages 20 to 24 and as young as 18 to 24 are at the greatest risk. So if you think a lot of the Gainesville population also involves students who may be coming for the first time, away from some of the support systems, entering relationships. Women over 45 have more intersections with homelessness, with poverty, and then that chronic illness that can come out of DV. And women of color experience intimate partner violence at a rate 30 to 50% higher than white women. Women are much more likely to be victims than men, but we know that anyone can experience domestic violence, and our agency does serve all survivors. Sometimes we get asked if we only serve women, and we serve all survivors of domestic violence and their children. So this is the power and control wheel, and it can kind of help you understand more about how we look at domestic violence. A lot of people think of that outer ring, physical and sexual, as domestic violence, but this was actually created by talking with survivors and seeing the abuse tactics that were most often used against them in relationships. So that using isolation is a huge one. A lot of times people are systemically cut off from their support systems, families, friends, hobbies, people that they could turn to for support as this is happening in the relationship. And often that's coupled with the emotional abuse. And we hear from survivors that a lot of times the emotional scars take longer to heal and to process than the physical scars. And so that emotional abuse may look like putting down, gaslighting, that negative narrative constantly of no one's going to believe you, you're exaggerating, you don't know what you're talking about, some of those mental illness terms being possibly used against them. Economic abuse is a huge piece we work with, so that's not only limiting income, but it could be controlling resources, monitoring their financial funds. If you have evictions on your credit report or your credit report's been damaged by your spouse, all those things can be very difficult to come back from when you're looking at going into sustainable housing, when you're looking at gainful employment. So all these pieces are definitely used, the coercion, the threats. Everyone's experience is different, so these tactics may play out differently, but these are all pieces of that domestic violence that people may be experiencing. So some red flags in relationships: quick involvement, love bombing, serious fast, that jealousy and volatility, and that jealousy can go into the heavy monitoring. So the thought of, if you don't have anything to hide, you'll show me your accounts, you'll show me your texts, you'll let me into these spaces. The belittling and guilting and manipulation that can go with the emotional abuse, the rigid gender roles of I believe this person should control these decisions in the relationship or have these roles in the relationship. But these don't always show up at the beginning of a relationship. So we want people to be very mindful of the language that they use and to avoid judging and blaming survivors. It's never a survivor's fault if they're experiencing abuse. Abuse is a choice behavior made by a batterer. So that is very important when you hear people talking in the community to address that. So a lot of times people may think or even say, why don't they just leave? And hopefully when we heard about the power and control wheel, we could see some of those intersections that can make it very difficult to leave. If you think about power and control, the most dangerous time for a survivor can be when they're leaving, because if that batterer realizes they're about to lose the power and control, things can escalate. There can be further threats. And we know that the first year after a survivor leaves is the most dangerous. This is someone they love, they've built a life with, they may have kids with, they may have a house with. There's all these pieces that go into that a survivor is thinking about. They may hope it won't happen again, believe that there can be changes there. There could be religious or cultural or family pressures on someone, and there may be a fear of involvement in systems, and the batterer may have used that to say, they're going to take away your kids, they're not going to believe you, you could be locked up. All these things that there may not be truth to, but may have been weaponized language against them. So when a survivor comes into services, they may have a lot of questions. How am I going to get my child into childcare? I haven't been working. How am I going to afford these things? How am I going to pay rent? How does the divorce look? What about custody? How do I move forward? And that's what our certified advocates help people think about and receive referrals and resources for when they come into services. So our services at a glance, we do have an emergency shelter campus. The average shelter stay is 6 to 8 weeks. And so if someone comes into emergency shelter, then a case manager and advocates are helping them look at their goals. We work off an empowerment method, so what their goals are at that time and how we help them address those goals. We have a supportive housing campus where people can live for up to a year, and a lot of times those people have additional barriers. We're looking to help them so that they can become sustainable and more safe in the community. We have food pantries and clothing closets that we take donations for. We have weekly support groups, both here in Gainesville, and we also serve Bradford and Union counties. We have economic empowerment team that works on economic advocacy, but also financial literacy classes, budgeting. We have different community organizations come in and present to the survivors. We do have a legal team that works primarily on injunctions for protection. We make referrals for trauma counseling in the community for adults and children, and we go out in the community and teach everyone about healthy relationships. So we are a partner with the Alachua County School Board, but we also go into places like Youth Build, Interface, Girls Place, Alachua Academy, and we teach about healthy relationships. And we'll also come into any organizations or businesses and talk about domestic violence and how to support staff. These are some of our numbers from last year. You can see we helped over 600 clients legally, provided over 6,000 total hours of trauma counseling, had 60,000 total survivor contacts, and 45,000 total nights of safe housing. So how you can support survivors in the community, which we would love, is for you to post materials to let people know you're a safe space to talk to and know how to make a referral to us. They can call our helpline 24/7. Someone will answer the phone locally and speak with them about our local availability and resources. We like to call it a helpline because family members and people can call as well to talk with us. And then talk about the issue in your social circle. There's a lot of silence around domestic violence still and intimate partner violence, how common it is. And we want people to know we're here. We've been here for 50 years. And so knowing that we are a resource. You can also support us by being a monthly donor, by donating. A lot of people hold third-party fundraisers for us. Well, they'll collect dry goods or clothing or things like that. We have a back-to-school drive every year, holiday giving. And then we're happy to come out and present to anybody on domestic violence, healthy relationships, red and green flags, all those pieces. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is not the reason that I asked you all to come present to us today, but in the past 11 months in the city of Gainesville, we've had exactly one murder. And that was a domestic violence situation, the first few days of March. It is critically important that we all understand not only what you all do, but what domestic violence means, what intimate partner violence means, and how folks can be helpful in those scenarios and around those scenarios, so that we don't have more situations like we had early last month.
Yeah, and a lot of times people think that they have to have emergency shelter to come in, and we have a whole outreach center. People can walk in anytime, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, don't need an appointment, and talk with a certified advocate. All of our services are free and confidential, and so there doesn't have to be any sort of appointment. People are welcome to just come in, and intake takes about an hour and a half, but they can just talk with someone right then in the moment.
Very good. Commissioner Book.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Director. I would say that the work that Peaceful Path does is tremendous as it relates to both prevention of victimization, but mitigating the impacts of that to the victim. Could you mention some of the other partners? A lot of times we have a lot of nonprofits and a lot of different services, but they're not overlapped, they're complementary. And I think probably Peaceful Path is complementary and works with several other services in this arena. Could you talk about some of those partners?
Sure. We work with a lot of different services. We work with the Early Learning Coalition for like daycare vouchers and things like that. We work with other housing providers in the area. We have a working relationship with Family Promise, with Grace, with places that other people may come into and then express that they have experience domestic violence and get connected in those ways. We have great relationships with all our law enforcement, which is extremely important. And I've met with each of them recently talking about how we can reinvigorate education and supports in those ways as well. So we definitely partner with all of them. We have lots of partnerships with youth outreach in this community also. And so we make a lot of referrals also through our elder abuse type of services too for people who may be experiencing different barriers as there as well. We work with healthcare providers, tons of community partners. We refer people to 211 if they aren't experiencing and may need other supports in the community as well. So.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Book. Can you describe for us a little more how you might work with law enforcement, particularly with GPD, and how that process works and how the interplay between GPD and your agency goes?
Yeah, so there is something called a lethality assessment protocol. And when officers go out to a domestic call, there is actually a process they follow. And it's actually looking at possibly being implemented in the state, but we're actually the county that's done it the longest amount of time. And so when officers go out from any of the law enforcement, and there's a domestic violence call, they call us. So they call our helpline, which rings to our advocates, and they can immediately connect the survivor on site with our services. And studies show that the best prevention for further violence is being connected to the local DV center. So sometimes survivors choose not to talk with us, and if that's the case, often we get the police report for the high risk, and then we can reach out and ask if they would like any resources or things like that, because we know when the call happens, that may not be the best time to receive information, but it immediately connects a survivor with us. And if they wanted to screen into shelter at that moment, if they wanted to talk about more resources, they have that opportunity. So it provides the support for the officers, but also for the survivors in that case. We also do trainings. So going in and training on what domestic violence looks like today, what those different tactics may be if people on site are kind of both escalated.
Gotcha. Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this?
Mr. Shepherd.
So we'll ask Mr. Shepherd to come up and give his opportunity for public comment, and then if we have any more lights, we'll come back up here. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shepherd. Yeah.
Yes, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because this is a critical need within our city, or any city. This is a critical need within our police department and several departments that are in the list of items that are here. But when I went over there and did a review, I seen across from me a husband and wife fighting. Then it went into fist fighting, and there was no officer there. And so I think it is value for us to take an issue, an officer to be there in behalf between the man and the woman's conversation or visits, so that no conflict or violent attitude or action takes place within that visit. This is a critical thing that the woman in some places feels very scared and that's the biggest word, scared of the transaction taking place. And so I asked that they be given some help in the police officers issue in security. And that was basically what I had to talk about, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
That was our last speaker, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And just looking forward, by the way, to the rest of the afternoon, just as a side note, our practice here is if you want to make public comment during an item, we ask you to fill one of these cards out and turn it in to the desk here, and they will get you in line for that. I know a number of people here are going to want to speak to the third item on the agenda, so just wanted to give you a heads up on how that works. And we will call for public comment at a particular time for that one as well. Commissioner Engel.
Just first off, I wanted to say thanks for the work you do. It's incredibly important. Grew up in a home my parents split when I was very young, but just kind of attitudes towards domestic violence are much different, I think. So again, thank you for everything you're doing there. In general, the resource level you got, do you feel like you are able to handle the caseload that comes forward? Are you overwhelmed? I mean, I'm sure we could always use more resources, but do you feel like you're handling the amount of work that's coming out of the community?
Yeah, thanks for asking so much. There are always unmet needs, and we're always looking for more resource lines to kind of help with those needs. Our funding is from the federal government is 45% about. So we are kind of as everyone is in the nonprofit world, waiting to see how that could possibly be affected as well with things coming up. But we're always looking to apply for different grants and different lines of funding that can help. Our shelter is often pretty close to full or full, so sometimes we have to look for resources, if it is, for other people who need those. But we try to be really good fiscal stewards of the money that comes in as well. So,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Engel. So I don't see any other lights, but I do encourage everyone, if you're watching at home or watching this later, please don't be shy about reaching out to Peaceful Paths if you need help, certainly, or if you're curious about how you can be helpful. They will absolutely welcome you, no matter the circumstance. And please know that we have an open door. You have an open door to the Gainesville City Commission, and we want to make sure that we're able to support as well as we possibly can. So,
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time today.
thanks for being here. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we're on to 2025-220 informational item, Family Promise Services Update, with a recommendation the General Policy Committee hear a services update from Family Promise. From Family Promise.
Very good. So let me, just a procedural note, we generally don't clap for items because there's a fine line between what you're clapping for and what someone else may be opposed to. I don't think anybody's opposed to these first two items, or probably the next one, but we just don't make a practice of doing that here because we don't want anybody jeering. So that's the flip side, unfortunately. Welcome. I've seen recently that you're moving onward and upward.
Yes. So thank you for having me. This is like my last public meeting as executive director at Family Promise of Gainesville. I'm actually moving up to the national office where I'll be the program director over our 200 affiliates that we have at our national office. So I'll still be involved with Gainesville, but from the outskirts.
Gotcha. Well, welcome today. Thank you for
you.
being here.
Well, so Family Promise of Gainesville has actually been in your community for 25 years. We started here in 1998 as one of the grassroots efforts from a woman who noticed there wasn't that much support for families with children who were homeless or experiencing housing insecurity. So for the last 25 years, we've helped over 1,000 families in our community get back into housing, which either through our shelter rotation. So in the beginning, we used churches as our shelter for our families. So each week, our families would stay at a shelter church in the community, and after that Sunday, they would move to a next church. So each Sunday, they're basically packing up and moving to a different church around the community. During this time, we're working with them with stabilization, case management, helping them find jobs, linking them to ELC vouchers so the kids can get into school quickly, and helping them find housing. So that's how we started out, with just that one shelter program. But we've expanded over the years to include prevention, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, and other stabilization programs for families in our community. And what makes us different is when we say families, you just have to have a child under the age of 18 in your home. So it can be a single dad, it can be the mom and dad, it can be the grandma, it can be the aunt that has custody of the kids. Whoever needs help, we are focused on the child. So after all the families that we've helped, over 90% of those families are still stably housed, of those 1,000 families that we've helped over the years. And 100% of the families who leave us from shelter leave us into housing. So they don't leave our shelter to their house. That is our motto, unless there's something, they have somewhere else to go. But we want you to have stable housing when you leave our shelter program. So the community need, as many of you are aware, rental costs in our community are extremely high. Just this quarter, like from January to now, we've had over 150 families reach out to us for help, which includes more than 300 children. So this includes families who may be literally homeless, but we see a lot of families who are doubled up, living in hotels here, or, with family or friends. And what's so bad about it is that the government assistance that we get, you have to be literally on the streets in order to qualify for that assistance. So there is a good amount of our families probably more, 70% of our families are usually in a hotel doubled up or don't meet the criteria for literally homeless, which means we can't help them with rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing assistance because the government doesn't see you as homeless. And we know those families have needs. So we rely a lot on private funding that comes in to help those families who meet that criteria. Another issue that we see is working families are coming into our program a lot due to the high rents. So we've had teachers' aides, we've had teachers, we've had police officers, we've had all the people who at one point was considered an essential worker, like during COVID. Like, we thought they were the heroes of our community, but now they are the ones facing homelessness and have nowhere to turn because when they go seek help from the government or other assistance programs, they're told they make too much. So we have a lot of those families that we're seeing now. And even though we've only helped 32 families, again, there was over 150 families that reached out to us. So there is a big need in our community for assistance as far as housing. One way that we're trying to meet that need is that we purchased a building from the old interfaith youth shelter, the CDS building. We purchased the old CDS building to now use as our shelter. So we're in our process of rehabbing that building and making it into a family shelter for families here in our community. What we've noticed in our community in Gainesville is that there's not that many shelter beds available for families. Like right now, we still have our kind of rotational shelter going, and we have St. Francis House that also works with us as far as shelter, but we need more. So this project will allow us to help 6 families at a time in this building, stabilize and shelter, move them out. Right now, we redid it's a very old building. It's built in the 1920s, and they kind of added on to it. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But we're looking to open in August to hopefully meet the family needs. But we are raising funds. So if you're interested in that arena, we are in need of funds because we have found, we redid the AC unit was tore up. So we had to do the HVAC system. We did the roof. Now we're just working on flooring and all the things to make it safe for our families to come in and have a safe place for the night. So when you think of the impact, a lot of people, when they think of homelessness, they think of the man standing on the side of the street, with the sign. But that's not what you see with kids. So when you're looking about kids and housing insecurity, how we see it in Alachua County is that there are currently only 51% of elementary students achieve proficiency in reading. So only 51% of our kids in Alachua County are proficient in reading, and only 50% in math. And that's largely due to the fact of housing insecurity. And now when I say housing insecurity, they don't have to be homeless, but their parents are working 2 or 3 jobs in order to keep their housing. They're not stably housed if you have to work 2 and 3 jobs to keep your housing. These families need help. And we call them the hidden homeless because they're not seen often, but we see the impacts in our community. Like I said, our educational rate is sad because a lot of times the parent can't help with homework because they're working 2 or 3 jobs. They don't have the time because they're trying to keep a roof over their child's head. And because of that lack, we see a lot of crime in our kids because there's not that stability at home. And it's not because the parents don't want to take care of their kids. That's what they're doing. They're out working. They're out trying to make a living for their kids, but they're not there to give that emotional support, that developmental support, which leads to them turning outside of the home sometimes into bad situations to meet that need. And we're seeing that a lot in our youth, in our community. And that's why housing stability is so important, not just for keeping somebody off the street. We need to look at the holistic view. We need to look at how do we keep them in schools? How do we make sure that the mom can work 1 job and still have time to sit down with her family, or the mom and the dad, because right now you need at least 3 incomes to make the rental costs that's out there right now. So we want to have that family situation back where they can all come home and eat a dinner together. Right now, that's not happening. kids are not given that opportunity to have that family structure. And that's all because of housing instability. And that's what message that Family Promise wants to bring. Like, we have to focus on this if we want change in our community. And I think that's about it for my presentation.
Thank you for that very much. So you, am I correct that the last quarter you had 150 families that you worked with in one capacity or another?
So what it is we have a virtual intake. So they reach out to us online and say, hey, I need help with rent or I need childcare. So it was 150 families that contacted us that needed help. We were able to bring in 32 of those families into either our shelter program, prevention, or some kind of service like that. Our hopes are, it's like when the Promise Center opens, we want to be kind of like how Grace is, but for families, where they have a way to, this is an outreach center. You can come in, get the help you need, get an ELC voucher, get referrals to, we're starting an education program where we'll help you get the GED, we'll help you get a phlebotomy, we'll help you get a CNA, we'll help you get a higher income so that you can provide a stable living for your families.
Very good. Thank you for that. We've got a few lights up here, and then we'll go out to public comment. Commissioner Engel.
Thanks again for the work you're doing. I strongly believe if you're working a 40-hour job, you should be able to cover your basic needs. You mentioned that several of these families are staying in hotels. So in general, if you're staying in a hotel, you're paying more than what a mortgage would be or what rent would be in a decent place or any of that in general. Is a lot of this trying to get people enough of a break to be able to save up first, last, security, and have that chunk of money it takes to move into somewhere, and then once they've got get past that first hurdle, they're able to move out of those shelters and move on?
Yes. So a lot of the issues that we're seeing is that, like, because they're paying $2,000-$3,000 for a hotel a month, they have no savings to afford first, last, and security to move into another place. Another barrier that we are seeing is you need to earn 3 times the rent to even qualify for an apartment now. And even though they have the good jobs, they don't have 3 times the rent to move in. So the issue is finding affordable housing, and like sometimes they do have if you're there, you probably do have an eviction. So that's also a mark against you. So the issue is finding affordable housing or landlords that are willing to not charge 3 times the rent for a person to move in, like to overlook a little, mishaps so that they can move into housing. And again, affordability is an issue. Right now, a 2-bedroom, according to HUD in Gainesville, it's reasonable to charge $1,583 for a 2-bedroom in our community. And I don't know about you, but a lot of people can't afford $1,583
No.
and childcare and transportation and food. So that's the dilemma a lot of our families are facing right now.
Again, thanks so much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Engel. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations on
Thank
your
you.
new job. We're going to miss you here. You all perform quite a job. How are you funded from the community?
So we do get CDBG funds from the city of Gainesville for our shelter operations. We get CAP as well for shelter. But I would say 70% of our funding for our rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing program all come from HUD and the state. And again, due to the climate, we're not really sure how that's going to be impacted. So in the future, we might be able to provide shelter because of the funding like we get from the city and everything. But if we don't get those rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing funds, we won't be able to house them. And the good thing about those programs, like rapid rehousing, we can help you for a certain amount of time stabilize. So we're housing you. We're paying the first, last, and security to house you. And then we're working with you while you're in the home to increase your income, get a stable job so that you'll be able to handle that rental cost on your own. With permanent supportive housing, we work with families who are disabled. So the head of household has a disability, which means that their income will never increase. So we are backing their income, basically. We're paying that difference so that they can stay and remain housed and focus on the needs of their kids and not so much how I'm gonna live from day to day.
So what would you say is the cost for one family for the rapid rehousing?
Depends on the size. If we're just gonna put them into a 2-bedroom apartment, you're probably looking with the rental and GRU costs that we're covering, probably around $2,000 to $2,500 a month.
A month? Okay. Now, how do you advertise or seek funding from the community?
We have some fundraisers that we do. We come to meetings like this and talk to the community. A lot of our funding comes through the COC, or the Continuum of Care, so that's where we get our HUD funding from, the ESG funding, the PSH funding, and all that comes through them. But we rely on word of mouth, coming out, talking to people, engaging with different donors. We've done a good getting our message out, and we've been able to, grow from just doing shelter to now we have about 5 to 6 programs running to help families stabilize. So it's a lot of work going out into the community and getting the message out, but we know it's an important message that has to get out because it's impacting, like I said, not only the kids in our community, but the community as a whole. Like I said, if you address housing insecurity, it impacts our educational success rate. It impacts the crime rate that we have in our community. It impacts everything. So we need to focus on our kids and making sure they have stable housing so that they can grow into the future and break that cycle.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Willetts.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Thank you for reminding us about the fair market value for the 2 bedrooms. I pulled out my laminated sheet that I keep in my binder at all times, and realized you must have the very new updated just in the past couple weeks.
Yes.
So for 2024, for the 2 bedroom fair market in our county was $1,397. It's now $1,583.
Yeah.
Which is a 13% increase. I think sometimes when we see the CPI inflation numbers, we go, oh, it's 3%, it's better than it was 9 years ago, but there's a portion of our community, particularly young people, students, young working families, who, because they rent, their living expenses it's centered, more of their money goes to things that are increasing more than 3 or 4%. And so retirees may worry about groceries and gas and health care because their mortgage is already paid off, mortgage, but young workers, people who rent, so that 13% increase in rent.
Just the
market
rent.
for a 2 bedroom. I just thank you for reminding me I need to update my sheet. I try to get it updated every year. And so where do you, in your experience with helping with families, where do most of these families end up in are they ending up in 2 bedroom apartments that are rentals? So where do they tend to end up so that we understand what kind of housing ends up being useful as they perhaps are no longer clients of yours?
Most of them do end up in a 2 bedroom, but some of them have more than 2 to 3 kids, and a 2 bedroom isn't going to work. So we try to work with the affordable housing, companies that we have here, like Verdant Cove, Gardenia. However, we also keep in the back of mind that we might be placing them in situations that might not be fair. But that's what they can afford. And that is the dilemma that we're facing. Like when you're thinking about affordable housing and sometimes safety for your kids, it's a catch-22. Like, yes, this is all you can afford, but you want to make sure you give your child that good, vision for the future. And sometimes you have to start off somewhere.
Right.
And we help work with them and move them up income-wise so that they can eventually, you'll start here, but maybe you can move, somewhere else later. But a lot of the families that we do serve wind up getting back housed on the east side of town. If you want to look at it, like that's where we're focused. But a lot of those buildings that are on the east side of town, they need upgrades. So we're placing them, the housing might be affordable that we're placing them in, but then they get their first GRU bill and it's $700 because it's not energy efficient. So it's not affordable anymore. So it is a gamble. It is a game that we have to play, and it's sad because we want our families to grow and be successful. But there's a lot of barriers that we have finding housing for our families and making sure they can stabilize.
Right. Well, thank you. I talk about this because we make decisions that we're gonna make decisions very soon about upcoming apartments that are not 4x4 student apartments, that are 2x2 or not 2x2, 2-bedroom apartments, garden-style apartments that are perhaps different. We're looking at potentially changing part of an ordinance because someone wants to have it be easier for incomes at the 100 to 120% AMI. So I'm just trying to help. It's not for you, it's for us. Try to tie these things together because sometimes it's easy. Some people want to think that we're only trying to provide single-family homes. That may be the long-term goal, but in between, people have to have a place to live, and we've built a lot of developers have built a lot of 4x4s, which are great for students and young people, and it has opened up some 2 bedrooms or even 3 bedrooms in the community that I'm sure some of your clients end up in at some point. But there are things in our code that discourage particularly 3-bedroom apartments.
And that's what's really needed because especially affordable ones.
Right.
Because like I said, they have more than 2 kids and a 2-bedroom isn't feasible. And
Right.
even if they have 2 kids, like if it's a boy and a girl, you really don't want your 12-year-old boy with your 5-year-old daughter to share rooms until they grow up. So you do want them to eventually have their own room and have their own space. But because of how high rents are, that's
That's what you
impossible
gotta do.
right now.
So there will be some building code across the country and in Florida and here makes 3-bedroom apartments less likely to happen. I'm gonna start talking about single stair apartment reform because by having to have double sets of stairs, you end up with long hallway apartments that don't lend themselves to 3 bedrooms because every bedroom needs a window, and you end up with a bunch of 2 bedrooms because that's kind of what works, what fits. But there's a move towards across in cities changing building codes to allow for only single stair apartments in under 2, 3, 4 stories that basically make people build smaller buildings that basically have more, in essence, more corners, and you can fit 3 bedrooms around it. So I want to bring this up as something so that later when we talk about and this comes up that we remember that a 3-bedroom apartment is important to have. Just because you don't want to live it or you don't want to raise your family in it, there are families that need it to raise their family. I come from a family of total 6 people. We always had 3 bedrooms, and we're all the kids were boys, so we're all doubled up. And for a while we lived in a 3-bedroom apartment when the economy was horrible in the 80s, and we had to move cities to follow a job, and we were most certainly low income. I think we were coming off of WIC. For me and my twin, I think we shortly got off of WIC, but we had to be in a 3-bedroom apartment, but only because someone did it, allowed it. We were able to live in a 3-bedroom apartment, 3-bedroom apartment for, 6 months a year before we moved on to a rental house for 7 years with 3 bedrooms. And then finally, not until my parents were, 40 years old, did we finally get an owned 3-bedroom house that we could live in. So, anyways, I just want to bring that up. That some of what we do, particularly. So, thank you for letting me take a little time to talk to my commissioners and get some of that feedback from you.
And then that is also important because like I said, it gives them a stepping stone.
Right.
So you want them to start off in a rental. It gives them safety, security, so they can build themselves up, build their credit, so that they can eventually move into home ownership. And that is the key way to build generational wealth is home ownership. So we want to get our families to that point, but we need somewhere for them to start.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Willits. Commissioner Eastman.
Thank you guys so much for all your work, like everyone else said. And as you just said, a place for people to start. So I'm very excited to hear about this Promise Center that you guys are doing. We have such a lack of family shelter beds.
Yes.
We've done a really great job with with Grace and some of those areas, which are not that's not a family place to go. It's very important. Some cities don't have places like that to go, but Family Promise, I'm really happy to hear about. How many units or how many shelter beds are you looking at with the Promise Center?
So right now, which we'll work with DCF to change that, but right now we can do up to 20 people staying there. So it depends on that makeup. So we're trying to get that, increased eventually, like once we get everything rolling. But right now it's sanctioned for 20 beds.
Okay. And where are you in the process in terms of fundraising and get moving?
We're in the process of, like I said, we had some funds from the COC that we've basically blew through because we had to redo. We got some funds from GACAR as well to do the roof. We had to redo the whole AC unit, which was $50,000 to redo the whole AC for that whole entire place. It's Florida, we need AC. it was mold in it because the AC wasn't working. So we cleared that out. Right now, we're still looking at maybe 120,000 that we're gonna need in order to redo the floors and to build those 6 family units. Right now, there's 4 rooms available that we can use as family units, but one of them is like a huge room that we can split, or 2 of them are huge rooms that we can split into 2 so that 6 families can actually be in our facility, and the more people that we can help, the better. So that's what we're looking to doing.
Well, thank you guys for all that work, and yeah, if anyone in the community is looking to support something, this is definitely a hole that we have within our continuum of getting folks off the street, and it's one of the more heartbreaking ones, people with children. So thank you guys for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Commissioner Chestnut.
I like the way you market this. You are the Grace Marketplace for families. And I think that's very important to keep saying to the community because people are not aware of it. I think I'm aware of the woman that helped to get this started because she worked with the club that I'm in. Do you receive funding from United Way? Because
So-
the city raises money for United Way, and I'm just wondering if you're one of the programs.
We do, but I think we get EFSP money from them, and then we're part of the UF campaign for charities that
Oh,
comes
good.
through
Okay.
United Way as well. However, it's
So
not
you
a
have
lot.
to have a person dedicated solely to fundraising.
Oh yes, that is my.
That's you.
Yeah. That is my main role. And like I said, I brought my team. So they're the ones that help the families. They do all the other stuff so I can be out in the community and finding money.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. I hope that that when we write this up, this presentation in our daily newsletter, that we will include how to help you and Peaceful Paths, so that if people want to go beyond what's happening now, they'll know how to provide funding to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chestnut. So thank you again for being here, and I'm sorry it took so long to get you all scheduled.
You're
But one of the things that I have noted that comes up a lot is you all have somebody who is not dedicated to working on finding people, to knowing what's available housing-wise and knowing how to match available units. Every other agency like yours has somebody who, it may not be their entire job, but somebody's got to be focused on that all the time. Grace has 1 or 2 folks who actually might be entirely focused on that. But I hear this come up at every agency. And I know Miami-Dade, much different scale, but there is a publicly funded couple of positions whose whole job is to work with the realtor community and particularly the rental community to know what's available and really what's available, not just what's listed, but how, what that landlord is looking for and how they will work with folks, and connecting people looking through an agency for housing with what's honestly available in the realm they're looking at. And it occurs to me that is a big missing piece in our community, that if every agency like yours, and there are a bunch, is, one level or another, is taking somebody off of what they normally do to kind of sort of part-time do that. We would have somebody at the Downtown Ambassadors who has taken that on as a thing that they do. Then you're not performing what you signed up to do as well as you could. And if we had somebody who really is focused on that for the community, that would be a big lift off of what you and agencies like yours do. And I'm not proposing that City of Gainesville create yet another position. We're not in a place to be able to do that. But I know folks from the county listen to our meetings and watch our meetings as well. And maybe that is a partnership that between the City of Gainesville, the Alachua County, the University of Florida, our institutions locally, the school board. School board has a lot of skin in this game, so to speak, because there are hundreds of children who are not, they don't know where they're going to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
And if if they're sleeping on somebody's couch, or they're sleeping in a car with mom and dad, or mom or dad, or however it works out, they're not doing homework.
No.
So the student outcomes at the Alachua County school system are impacted, as you mentioned, significantly by this. So all our institutions have a stake in this, and maybe there's a way to start solving some of these problems one at a time, position by position. And I'm not proposing anything. That just is something that occurred to me as you're speaking, that it comes up over and over and over again. And there is a template in other counties for how that works.
Well, I know we have our dedicated set, like she's our housing person.
But you do a lot of other stuff
But she does
too.
a lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But we, what we see a lot of is that we have a good relationship with our landlords that we use, and they often call us and say, hey, I got an available unit. Hey, this person, that I have an available unit. But what we see is we need somebody the landlords can call just in case something happens to the unit, because we are working with people. We do have something called our renters' rights, where we do teach them, how to take care of a property, how to, what to look for in their lease, all the things that's in your lease agreement. So we do have that piece, but when you have sometimes 5 children in a 2-bedroom, something's gonna get broken. I mean, it's too many kids or too many people in one spot. So landlords do need somebody to reach out to, maybe for landlord mitigation, like, hey, I had to replace my pipes because a child flushed the toy down the toilet. Like, could you help me? If we had those supports for the landlords, I think more landlords would be willing to help work with their different agencies. Because we do, like if somebody that we do place causes some damage, we do try to pay to mitigate that, but that's taking money away from another family that we can help, so.
Okay. Commissioner Chestnut.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I could see this as a component, perhaps part-time, in our housing, with our housing department now. If we have funding, I know you're saying you get some CDBG, but perhaps they could look at a way to fund a position that would help in trying to help you in finding placements, or helping to create other placements. So maybe that's something that Ms. Ramos or staff could look at for the future.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm glad that we can start that conversation, whether it's a city position or not. It is a conversation that needs to be had. We got 10 different organizations out there or more doing a little bit of it, and if there were somebody whose whole job, or 1.5 people whose whole job is to do that, and you could use them as a resource instead of spending your funds to do that, I feel like that would be
We'd house more people.
a step. Yeah. All right. So do we have any public comment on this item, Madam Clerk?
There is no public comment.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here with us. I hope everybody at home has been able to watch a little bit of this. And we actually do have folks who watch every meeting. So hopefully this will spark some interest and willingness to be helpful in folks in the community for both Family Promise and Peaceful Paths. And I really appreciate you all making time out of your very, very busy schedules to be here with us today.
No, thank you.
All right. Thanks. All right. Madam Clerk.
All right, Mr. Mayor, we're on to 2025-286 Hoggetowne Medieval Fair presentation with the recommendation the General Policy Committee hear a presentation from Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs staff and provide direction on the future of the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair event for fiscal year 2026. I would like to make note that we do have folks who would like to speak to this item, just a few of them that have not been able to make it in because we're at capacity. So as people are done with the items, we will need to try to have folks shift out into the lobby to let other folks in.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you,
Yep.
Madam Clerk. And before we move into the item itself, I want folks to be aware. I'm glad that you're here to speak on this item. I don't think that I had a few people reach out to me in a great state of concern. We are here to talk through some of this. I don't expect any huge decisions to be made today. So just be aware, take a deep breath, it's gonna be all right. That's my best advice on all the stuff that we're working with these days, but this item in particular. Ms. Ramos, did you want to intro this or? Okay. Ms. Ladendorf, welcome.
Hi, Mayor Commissioners, Leslie Ladendorf, Assistant Director for Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. We are here today to present an update on the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair. We're going to run you through what's happened in the past, what's happening currently, and then hopefully get some decisions on how we can move forward in the future. I'm going to bring up our Cultural Affairs team, Carol Velasquez-Richardson, who is our Cultural Affairs Manager, and Sunshine Andre, who is our Assistant Manager for Cultural Affairs.
Very good. Thank you.
And they're going to do the presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Carol Velasquez Richardson, Cultural Affairs Manager for PRCA. And joining me is Sunny Andre, who's the Assistant Cultural Affairs Manager and one of the major event coordinators for the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair. We're here to answer your questions after your presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Ward, and Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Sunshine Andre. I go by Sunny. People can call me either, whichever you prefer to say. I like the term Sunny because it tends to make people smile. So, and part of my job as an event planner is to bring joy. So that is always one of our goals when working with the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair. I realized when I first started going through this presentation that if I just kind of vamp on my own thoughts, it's going to take 2.5 hours. So I have my notes so that way I can keep it as fast as possible because I know there's a lot of people that want to speak about this as well. Okay, they told me to point. They didn't tell me what button to click. Button? That button. All right, not the main button. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so where we've been. The Hoggetowne Medieval Fair began at the Thomas Center, which was held there for 4 years before moving to the Alachua County Fairgrounds. During the pandemic, it shifted, and we had a virtual event called Hoggetowne at Home. And then after the sale of the fairgrounds, the event relocated to a private property off of Archer Road, formerly known as the YMCA Sports Complex. We shifted again, and for the past 2 years, it has taken place at Depot Park. So a quick bit of history. I promise this will be quick. The Hoggetowne Medieval Fair began in 1987, founded by the Society for Creative Anachronism, otherwise known as the SCA. A few years later, Cultural Affairs took over the management, but the SCA remained an integral part of the fair, continuing to provide medieval demonstrations each year, and they are still with us today. As the fair expanded, it quickly outgrew the Thomas Center and moved to the Alachua County Fairgrounds, and by 2000, record-breaking numbers in attendance led to the addition of a second weekend, and then 2020, the event had grown enough to include a third weekend. After the pandemic, returning to in-person events came with the challenge of securing a new site. So we were fortunate to find a temporary home at the old YMCA Sports Complex on Archer Road. But then in 2023, another surge in attendance forced us to search for a new space that would accommodate the increased traffic. Staff spent months working to secure a new location, but despite their efforts, each potential site ultimately fell through, and with no viable option available, the fair had to adapt once more, and we shifted to the single weekend at Depot Park. Okay, fingers, turn the page. So where we are right now. We've been at Depot Park for the past 2 years, and while it's been a wonderful experience to be able to keep the event alive, we can't ignore what we've lost in the process. To adapt to the smaller space, we had to reduce the merchant marketplace as well as scale back to 6 stages of entertainment, which resulted in losing the excitement of the joust and the wonder of the birds of prey demonstration. The single weekend schedule has meant saying goodbye to some of our fan favorite performers such as Barely Balanced and Empty Hats, and the cherished activities as the medieval games. So our yearly attendance over the years has seen a general climb with weather issues, a pandemic, and site relocations causing dips. You'll see it from 2017 to 2018 and 19. 2017 had good weather. 18 and 19 both had rainy weather. And then, of course, 2020, we had great weather again. The pandemic hit. And we went to a virtual event, which of course did not see the same number of attendees as our in-person events. In 22, we relocated. Numbers went up again in 23. In 24, we relocated. Numbers went up again in 25. So because planning for a large event takes about a year, expenses for each event is actually split between 2 fiscal years. So when you're looking at the numbers for both for expenses mostly, know that this is divided between those 2 fiscal years. The event team does watch the budget carefully to ensure that expenses do not exceed the anticipated revenue. And then since the majority of this revenue comes from ticket sales, weather, of course, plays a crucial role. So you'll see the dip in that revenue on those weekends that are on those years where weather impacted us. Quick insight into our event breakdown, our expense breakdown, because a lot of people ask, well, where does what costs the most when putting on this event? So you'll see that the expenses for the Medieval Fair are spread throughout a variety of needs, with the majority coming from entertainment, equipment rental, and services. The miscellaneous fees that's listed here are those fees processing fees associated with accepting credit cards and payments. So that number is always going to fluctuate depending on the amount of revenue that comes in. The staff expense that's here does not include the staff time that is actually used for planning, just for the actual staffing of the event weekends, as well as EMS, GPD, or ASO, depending on who we're working with for security, and any temporary staff. So this event is self-sustaining. The funding for the Medieval Fair is primarily through ticket sales. The only expense that the general fund covers is the time staff spends in the actual planning of the events. All the overtime cost or weekend cost is charged against the revenue that the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair brings in for that individual event. The strategy for the revenues covering the event has worked well over the years when the event was allowing the event to grow organically, so that way the growth could occur as it was needed along the way. Thus going from 2 weekends to 3 weekends back in 2020. So before the pandemic and all of the location changes, the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair featured 150 merchants in the medieval marketplace. It entertained guests on 11 stages. This includes the joust. We worked with over 150 volunteers, many of whom returned to volunteer year after year, and welcomed over 2,000 students across 27 counties for school day at the fair due to the low-cost field trips. Our dream would be to find a location where we can be able to host this large event and return of all of these features. So, in order to return to a large event that was previously held at the Alachua County Fairgrounds, we would need at least 47.5 acres that gets divided up into parking, merchant booths in the medieval marketplace, games, rides, and activities, 11 stages of entertainment, participant camping, and then management space for things such as ticket booths, dumpsters, generators, and other behind-the-scenes necessities. It is also important to have some open green space where people can spread out from the crowd. This is the minimum need to sustain what we have and to not provide an opportunity for future growth. If we wanted to be able to grow, we would need 60 to 80 acres for that expansion. So that's 60 to 80 acres for expansion in order to host the large 3-weekend event. It would need to be mostly clear, dry land. 10 to 12 acres is needed for program space, which is the fun fair space that everyone knows and thinks about when they come to the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair. An additional 10 acres is needed for participant parking and camping, as well as other behind-the-scenes and less glamorous features such as storage and dumpsters and the mulch pile that are always components that take place behind the scenes. The bulk of the need is the 30 to 40 acres for parking, which must be cleared. That's not paved, that's just cleared, and preferably not used to plant produce like watermelons. For those who attended the 2022 and 2023 Hoggetowne Medieval Fair, you experienced what it is to drive through a watermelon field. Because this event is produced by the City of Gainesville and staff must travel to and from the event location on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day, the site must also be within 4 miles of the City of Gainesville city limits. And this location must also come within the budget of the site rental costs. So there are a lot of factors. Time, when it comes to our site needs regarding the time, we need the entire space for the entire month of January. And maybe a few days in February as well. It takes 2 weeks to set up the event. It takes 1 week to take down the event, and then the event runs for 3 weekends, which it stays up that entire time. So vehicle access to reduce roadway traffic, thank you, which we know is an important aspect of managing a large event. There must be at least 2 main access points for guests to enter and exit. The guest exit must be off of a 4-lane highway so that through traffic can continue flow and we're not backing up the roadways. The guest access must be off of a 4-lane highway. Nope, I just said that. In addition to the main guest access, we need to have a secondary access for emergency vehicles, participant access, volunteer access, and then random deliveries that take place during the day. So, and then the other kind of final requirement that we have is the event permit. Depending on the location, there might be new or different requirements that have to be navigated within that permit process. So we have to be able to actually pull that event permit for that site to be considered viable. So site needs infrastructure. Water is the most crucial because we need that for our food vendor booths. We need that for our animal performers to make sure that their health stays, that they're taken care of. We have to provide water to approximately 15 different food vendors along a 600-foot or line, 600-foot space, lane of space. So for an example, we installed over 750 feet of pipe and water bibs for the event that we did over at the YMCA, the old YMCA Sports Complex. So after water, our next need is power. At the minimum, we need enough amperage to support 15 food booth vendors with approximately 30 amps for each booth. And then fencing, ideally, there would be perimeter fencing around the entire property so that we can prevent unauthorized access, but fencing around just the programmable space would work as well. And then there's always rental fencing if we needed to. So additional desired features, this is again reflecting back on what was offered at the Old County Fairgrounds, flushable toilets. We all know that it is much preferred to have a flushable toilet than to go into a porta potty. Again, we will all deal with what is presented, but that is always a nice option. Campground for our vendors and performers. We have a lot of people that come in from out of town in order to participate with this event, and they need a place to stay while they're here. A tree perimeter. During that time of year, there can be very strong wind gusts that come in from the west side, so if there is a nice tree perimeter along the west side at least, that helps with those gusts. And then a paved trail or road, which will enhance ADA access and provide a quick way for EMS to get around the site. So why 4 miles? We often get the question, why 4 miles, in regards to the location requirements. So here's a very brief explanation. It takes the cooperation of several teams to set up and take down all the sets and props for the medieval fair. The majority of this work falls on the park staff and their team of 10 to 12, sometimes a little bit more, who work 5 to 7 days preparing for the event. During this time, they are unable to fulfill their daily duties maintaining city parks. An event that is too far from Gainesville would mean additional driving time, which would result in additional setup days due to the time lost for traveling to and from a location. In addition to this challenge, costs would go up for the staff overtime expenses incurred during the event weekends themselves due to the travel to and from a distant location. While there is revenue generated from the fair, it is the economic impact from local and out-of-county tourism that has the largest effect on the city of Gainesville. If the medieval fair were to relocate more than 4 miles, the economic impact would shift to the county or another municipality, and the city of Gainesville would lose the benefits of producing the event. So another common question we get is, when will it go back to the fairgrounds? So we wanted to let everyone see that the property is now controlled by the Army Reserve, and the development to convert the property to an equipment concentration site is nearing completion. According to an article published by UFT on March 27th, it is expected to open this September. So over the past 7 years, staff has evaluated more than 40 potential locations in the search for a new site. In the next few slides, we will review some of the most frequently suggested properties and outline the reasons why these sites are not considered viable options. The Alachua County Agriculture and Equestrian Center. Staff explored the possibility of using this location, but based on map imagery, it was determined that the potential usable space of approximately 18 acres would be too small to meet the needs of the medieval fair. The West End Golf Course. This space was acquired by Alachua County and will become a county-managed park. The current plans for the space do not include enough parking for 4,000 vehicles, which is needed for the medieval fair. The Gainesville Raceway. The team was excited to explore the Gainesville Raceway as a possible solution. It meets the minimum requirements for space, including parking needs, fencing, and would even provide large paved lanes for easy access for traveling in a wheelchair or scooters. But although it does not include water or power infrastructure, the team still felt this could be a viable site. During negotiations, the requirements for insurance coverage became too extensive, and the insurance company we were working with through the risk department told us they could not provide us a policy for the event. Cuskawilla Nature Center. So it's a beautiful site, it's a beautiful property, but the usable space only adds up to approximately 16 acres, and therefore we would not be able to fit the event on the site. So MLK Citizens Field. We briefly considered the MLK Center as a possible location, as it has enough acreage for the program space, the full fund space for the event, which its needs are approximately 11 acres. But it was discovered that there are no close parking pockets or parking areas around that location, and staff determined that the traffic impact to the neighbors living around the center would be too great for this to be a viable location. So staff looked into the property on Waldo Road. It's located across from the airport. We discovered that the FAA sound restrictions on decibels near or in the flight path of the aircraft and the proximity and positioning of the site to the Gainesville Regional Airport prevented this site from being utilized. And then in 2018, staff held community engagement meetings and developed concept designs exploring the potential use or the potential future uses of the property owned and undergoing restoration by Coppers. One of the concepts included the possibility of transforming the site into a festival and arts park. However, several other concept designs were presented during the process, so it's unclear if this particular idea would have gained any momentum. Subsequent challenges included the onset of the pandemic, the departure of the city manager who was leading the effort, and ongoing restoration delays left this timeline uncertain. So we have no additional information on that particular site. And then we got so close. In 2023, staff moved to purchase 3 parcels owned by the Birch family that were located between Waldo Road and Northeast 39th for a total of $1.5 million. Although there were some sections in the floodplain, which are the areas you can see in pink, there was enough space to meet all of the minimum needs and plenty of space for future growth. The owner was initially interested, but was unwilling to include a zoning clause in the contract, which had been required by the city, stating that the sale of the property would be contingent on receiving the necessary zoning to allow the property for use as a festival and arts park. The owner decided to go with another seller, and that seller turned around and is now selling it for $10 million. So some quick additional site research. You can see we have reached out for private-owned properties, Carson Springs Wildlife, the Peanut Patch and Corn Maze. There was a private property owned off of Hawthorne Road, the mine, which is also known as Post Farms, the Waldo Flea Market, the Waldo Motorsports. We got creative in our thinking. We looked at several city-owned properties, Bulwer Springs, Fred Cone Park, Gumroot Park, Ironwood Golf Course, Morningside Nature Center. And all of these were deemed unviable for one reason or another. So as we look towards the future of the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair and knowing the challenges we encountered finding a location for the last 3-weekend event, or for the large 3-weekend event, the question we are trying to solve is what's next? Do we continue as a single weekend event at Depot Park? Is there property we just haven't discovered yet? Are there partnerships that could be established? And so we look at that and we go, okay, what does returning to Depot Park? If we continue on Depot Park, the positive side is the city owns the park. It has paved pathways, so it's wheelchair and scooter friendly. We know what it looks like. We know how to do a layout there. The challenges of the park include its small size and limited parking. So many who attend the event are excited just to arrive and discover that parking is gone and the food lines are very long. Having the event on a single weekend means attendance numbers that would have been spread out across 7 days is now condensed into just 2 days. So it makes for very large crowds and ultimately limits how many people have the opportunity to come and enjoy this event. The open park also prevents us from charging admission fees, which is the main revenue source, and without it, the event would need funding support in order to continue. So there is a parcel of land located on Highway 121 that is owned by the City of Gainesville and managed by PRCA. And at first glance, the site appeared to have strong potential. Not only is it an already owned city site, but its previous use as a timber farm presents it as an opportunity to partner with a timber contractor for land clearing, which means a little less cost in the infrastructure should we to go that route. However, upon closer evaluation, several challenges emerged. Due to the presence of wetlands, we discovered that only approximately 35 acres of the site is actually usable. And additionally, there's no currently any direct access to the property from 121, so we would have to install an access road. It is off of a 2-lane highway that is 60 miles per hour in that location, so an additional turn lane or some additional access lane would have to be developed right there off of the highway in order to not obstruct traffic. And then there is the neighborhood that is immediately adjacent to that property. Due to the small size of the property, that 35 acres, there would not be a sufficient space to create a noise buffer so that the noise from the event would not travel over into that community. This is just another quick slide to show, again, that pink is the floodplain, so you can kind of see the wetlands follow for the most part where that floodplain area is in that right side of the rectangle. So in summary, I told you I'd be as fast as I could. Since the closure of the former Alachua County Fairgrounds, the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair has not been able to secure a site that meets its long-term needs or supports a return to its traditional 3-weekend format. Additionally, efforts to establish a permanent festival and arts park have been delayed due to the rising property values and increased construction costs. Without funding support from the City Commission and other partners, the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair will be unable to continue as a city-produced event. While we continue the search to find a viable location for the 3-weekend event, because we're not giving up, funding in the amount of $130,000 will need to be secured in order to support an additional year at Depot Park. Staff is recommending to seek other funding sources, such as a city-county partnership for the Depot Park-based free event in fiscal year 26, as well as seeking other funding sources, such as a city-county partnership for a permanent festival and arts park to continue this event in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Thanks to everyone involved in it. Thanks to everyone across PRCA and the rest of the city organization who's been working on this, and to everyone in the community who's been working on this and giving thoughts to it. I have many, many thoughts on this. I'm only going to say one of them to start off with, and then we'll get to everybody else. If we expect it to find a spot to make it look exactly like it looked in 2019 or so, or 20, I guess, is the high water mark for the original site, we're going to continue to be disappointed, because that was a unique site. We don't have that unique site anymore. So we're going to have to change some of the parameters as this moves forward. And that is just a thing that we're all going to have to come to grips with, that the parameters are going to change because the old fairgrounds doesn't exist any longer. So having said that, we'll get started on the conversation up here. Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for so much of all of staff's work, but your work on the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair. People care so deeply about this. It's an incredible event. It's one of the cornerstone events that our community puts on. It's unique. It's sort of it's eccentric. It is everything that people love about Gainesville. And I've heard people, some folks will love the downtown depot spot. Some people will say it's not like it was from before. And I'm always reminding folks just the amount of time and effort that you guys have all put into it. I think you did a great job in this presentation of just showing the love that we had for, the love that our staff has had for this event, trying to keep it moving, trying to keep it going forward, and just that it's not like I'll hear folks from the community say, well, why isn't the city choosing to put this on at some of these larger areas? Why is the city choosing to do it? And this is us just trying to make sure that this event that we love is continuing to move forward, and that's a testament to you all. You mentioned, I think, 11 acres of programmable space. Is that right? Is what you're looking at for a place separate from parking, separate from all of that?
Yes.
Just 11 acres. How many acres do we currently have? Do we estimate for Depot Park?
For Depot Park, it's approximately 5 acres that we're working on for programmable space.
Okay. And then you mentioned before that. That we could not charge for tickets at the Depot Park space. Why can't we charge for tickets at Depot Park
So the
space?
logistics of charging for tickets at Depot Park are very extreme. We would have to be able to fence in the entire space. So that's fencing in 5 acres, bringing in temporary fencing, which has a large cost for that temporary fencing.
Makes sense.
I've seen a lot of temporary fencing where if they're typically held with feet because you can't stake into Depot Park. So it's feet and sandbags, and so they can be pushed over if you put any kind of cloth along that fence. A high wind will take that fence line down. So there's a little bit of a safety consideration. I'm sure we could figure out a way to work around it, but that is one of the thoughts that's in our head. And then I'm gonna let Leslie talk about the nice park because I don't remember all the details and I don't want to get it wrong. Yep.
So we have what we call economies of scale. When we can have a 3-week event, we can take those costs and share them over the 3 weekends. With 1 weekend, which is what we'd probably get, because we literally close down a site for almost 7 to 8 weeks,
Right.
if you count the setup before and this breakdown after. So when you put all that in, the economies of scale to do a closed off 1 weekend event, we're not going to make any money, probably. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my guess. We could probably run some numbers, but our economies of scale towards even fence renting, some of the other rentals that we have, to have them for multiple weekends versus 1 weekend, it doesn't make sense. And so when you think about that, you're really closing off the site for quite a bit of time from the public, which is one thing that we've always said, in PRCA, we don't want to close off the entire park for that long. And so that is one of those issues.
Because you mentioned before that it's a 2-week build up and then a 1 week breakdown, right? Is that true for even the smaller scale Depot Park?
No, we do 3 days for the smaller scale.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Going fast. 3 days building up, and then 24, 48 hours, 1 day to break down. Okay.
1.5.
And so we would think that so the cost of fencing is really is a driving. Of course, you would if you're renting it for a longer period of time. You'd think the cost would go up, but splitting it over the course of time. But then it would still be, even if the 2 week build up is more for the for the larger for these larger events. I mean, I would imagine that if you did fence it in, it would probably still take about 3 days build up, 1 day breakdown, I guess, besides the fencing.
For ticketing, no, we actually have some additional things that would have to come in as well. We have to have
Okay.
a secured ticket office. We have a couple of other things that just would be determined by delivery dates. And a lot of times we get a week ahead of time to get a big office space for selling tickets.
Right.
Carving out that space to be able to sell the tickets. So there's a lot of extra little things that would come into just ticketing an event.
Right. All right, that's all the questions I have for now. I'm sure I'll have more. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Eastman. Commissioner Willens.
Mr. Mayor. So did we in 23 or 24 look into any option about, in essence, raising money and optional ticket support for people who love it, but who now we understand that it's a significant cost that we're not getting any revenue on as opposed to previous. Did we look into any of that? Are there options where you really get community support, people who love it, who've always been willing to pay a ticket, but now we just, in essence, haven't asked them?
We were very fortunate, I think, over the 2 years we were at Archer Road to actually make profit. Weather is the most detrimental thing to the fair when it comes to how we make profit. If it has one weekend of rain, one day and one weekend of rain, our profit drops considerably. And we were fortunate enough to make a really good profit with a $20 ticket. A $20 ticket's a pretty big lift. That's why our school day, where we give a $3 ticket for kids, is so popular. That $20 ticket's a lot to ask. We would be asking a lot less for tickets if we had it smaller, because we aren't offering as much as we were with a $20 ticket. But even with a $20 ticket, it's pretty steep for a lot of people. We were at market rate. We'd actually kept it that $20 for quite a while because of that market rate of what we offered versus what other fairs are charging. But asking people to make an additional charge, we did not. We could do some sponsorships. We actually already do some sponsorships, but asking for donations from people.
So, Mayor, Commissioners, Roxy Gonzalez, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, that was part of one of our discussions in the question of what other ways to kind of bring in some funds. So we assured the best way to do it at Depot Park, for example, was to assure that we still had our merchant sales. So that people that revenue for the merchant sales comes back to this event as well. So that was a way to do that as a government entity in regards to donations without a non-for-profit 501c3 attached to us. It doesn't behoove us to receive donations to that in that element at an event like that. So we really geared towards our merchant sales. So like the mugs, the t-shirts, and things of such that identify that event.
Okay, that helps me
Okay.
understand a little bit. Just because, nonprofits raise money in all kinds of weird ways where it's not necessarily ticketed, it's this, that, or the other. Sponsor people, like to get their special armband or their special mug or whatever and really push it. So I just didn't know how much we'd done that in the years 23, 24 when we were at Depot Park.
And I want to, point out we do a very, we're very thankful and grateful for the Hoggetowne Brewers Guild or Club that come in and do the beer sales, because a big chunk of what they make is charity. It's all charity. They give it out to other organizations, but they also give back to the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair. So every year, a portion of that has come back to the city as a sponsorship donation.
Right. Okay. And then, so I understand like a bunch of the sites just have not worked out over the years. I'd always been excited that the idea that coppers could be used for something like this, because it's a site we don't perhaps want to use permanently, really intensively every single day of the year. There's still ongoing concerns, but the idea that it could be something used sporadically in perhaps a less intense way, or intense just for a short period of time. I'd always looked forward to that, but I understand that it's always going to depend on when finally it is fully remediated, and that it could be a long-term plan for us, but it doesn't help us in the short term. If we were super committed to it and said we're going to do this, potentially I really think it could work, but there's a lot of different pieces that have to work out right. Otherwise, close to the city, enough, from what I understand, enough land, lots of access points. We still might struggle with parking and upsetting neighbors, but potentially a great place. When we looked at Ironwood Golf Course, did we determine it wasn't adequate if we only continued golf, or whether if the golf course itself no longer functioned, would there be an opportunity there?
So when we were in discussions within the fiscal year 24 budget cuts cycle, and when Ironwood was proposed as one of the cuts, we were in discussion of if we were to turn that into the festival grounds, it would take eliminating the whole back 9 area to make that parking, because the way Ironwood is designed to date, there's no way to have a festival on a golf course. Also considering the grass, the fairways, the greens, you can't do a festival and have people walk through that and not damage that without increasing cost.
Okay, and I just want to make sure because I've been excited about that. If it's that golf was not something we were going to continue to do as a city, then that became exciting as a potential use. So,
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. And then I'll just say that it is important to people, like Commissioner Eastman said, and it feels like it's something we've done. I want to find that 130 to continue it. Still, we had a lot of people show up, and despite people saying that it's only one weekend or no one's going to go, people go. Despite people saying, oh, there's no parking, clearly figure it out. And I went, so I saw people walking all the way down Depot Avenue, all the way from the university area over. People kind of figure it out. It's a testament to multimodal transportation. So I really like it. I'm glad we can do it at Depot Park. I want a different location. The 121 property, is it that this would not be a permanent solution, but it could be a temporary solution? Or is this more like
This property is very difficult. A lot of it is because of the location, how far out it is, which isn't too bad, but it's 2 lanes. We would be shutting off any traffic to what's lacrosse that's out there. So any traffic going out there for a festival day, if you experienced Archer Road in 23, we shut down Archer Road. We would be shutting down 121 going out there, and we would be blocking off the neighborhood that is just south of it. They would lose all access to to be able to get in and out there unless we created a special road just for them to get them down the road. We don't think they'd be able to get in and out of their houses, their road.
right? Someday all
If it was
that.
4-lane, yes.
Someday, if it's developed by the people who own it, which we gave, they've been approved, they're now zoned, that they can do stuff in the future, and they will have to be involved in improvement of the road at some point. So again, it's one of those, someday down the line, particularly if we were able to buy some land adjacent to it, that is part of that old Weyerhaeuser property. And in that area, it is inside that parcel is not.
It is not, it's county.
Immediately north of it's in the city, kind of
Yes.
immediately south, and it's.
But it's annexable.
It is annexable, right. At some point, 30 years from now, we will need a park facility up 121, I think, to adequately, for the development that could happen there, that at least is zoned for. So then that's not a bad idea to have, we do have some property, this is the property, but a little more property to get the size. But I understand that the road is just not going to be, 30 years from now, there may be the road capability, it may be very clear that it's a park, and that we would be using it as such, expanded, buy some more land up there. But it sounds like right now it's not available. So I just would say I support the idea of finding it. I look forward to Ms. Ramos helping us understand where potentially that would come from, and just, we're gonna have public comment, but for my commissioners, at least 4 people commented on our eScribe system. Most people don't use the eScribe. I'm glad you saw.
Because the clerk showed me. That's
Good.
why.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. But 4 people did chime in and say that they support continuing at Depot Park or look at other locations, and that they value it and that it's worth the money if we can find it. So I just wanted to make sure my other commissioners knew that. So thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Willits. And before we move on to the lights, I just want to mention regarding Coppers. I want to be super clear regarding Coppers. Yeah, it's great. It's in the middle of the city. It's 100 acres. We don't own it. We don't know when it's going to be available for anything. And until the EPA, it's a Superfund site, by the way. It's an actual, no kidding, Superfund site. And until the EPA pushes the current ownership to finish up, and I know that in my mind, I've got about 3 people who I know are going to contact me about this and give me further details about why this is not exactly correct, but it's pretty correct. Until the EPA decides that that's going to finish, and they're not going to decide that in the next 3.5 years, I'll promise you, that just isn't part of our conversation. It is the perfect site for something like this, but it isn't real. We don't own it, and it's not going to be available anytime in the very near future. So, as perfect as it is, it's unattainable. Commissioner Engel.
So the first time I went to the medieval fair, I don't know exactly how old I was, but it was at the Thomas Center, so I'm guessing about 13. So I've seen that event change an awful lot to this really amazing thing we had going kind of out of the fairgrounds. That being said, my bottom on this is that it still happens. I think pretty much everybody on the dais is on the same page. We're not going to let this event not continue to happen. And I think that's really important. That being said, as we've grown as a city, and we keep looking for these places inside of 4 miles, and there's reasons that all these little things don't work. Have we talked at all to the county, or are there any pieces of property just outside that 4 miles that do make sense if we start looking at partnering instead with the county or something like that?
We have, I think, exhausted all of the county properties that could be usable. So that's Cuskawilla, that's the new West End, that is, but they have conservation land. They're big on conservation land, so there's a lot of land they own that we can't use, whether it's in 4 miles or without 4 miles,
I think
with the county.
maybe I misspoke.
Okay.
Are there pieces of property inside of Alachua County that would work for that, but outside of our normal 4-mile thing? So that if we partnered with, say, Alachua County to put on the event, or something along those lines, that, I mean, is there just things like immediately outside that area that might be usable, even if it's not owned by the county?
So we haven't found anything immediately outside that area. The closest we've found is about 9 miles. And then there's a few others that have been identified a little further out, 11 miles, 13 miles. But we have found some that far out. That's when it gets to looking at what our expenses will be if we have to travel those distances and what that impact means for Gainesville.
Gotcha. But I said if we were able to do something like where we split the expenses with the county, or if we brought in some other partner or something like that, so it wasn't just all on us to try and make that happen. There are some pieces of property that might work somewhere.
Potential.
I think that's all I got until we get to county.
Thank you, Commissioner Engel. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. Talk about the Gainesville Raceway a little bit more.
You did that more.
Okay. So we actually, as I mentioned, we got very excited about that property when we started exploring it. It's not if you think about the Gainesville Raceway, most of us think about the drag strip where the cars are. That's not the section of that property that we would be using for the festival. There is a section in the back that has, I think GPD might have used it at one point for training, like vehicle training activities and exercises. So it's 20, the lanes are about 20 feet wide, asphalt paved. It's perfect for driving vendor load in and load out and not damaging the property. It's perfect for wheelchair access, being able to easily navigate the space. There are some low points to it. So for those that went to the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair at the Alachua County Fairgrounds during any of the rainy seasons and experienced the mush that happens out at the fairgrounds, it would have that same kind of effect if you weren't on any of those paved areas. It's fenced in, so you can maintain authorized access. It does have the roadway. It's got multiple entrances to get into the space. It has 2 lanes going out, but a turn lane coming in. And ASO already has a plan in place for moving many, many vehicles in and out of that space because they do it every year for Gator Nationals. So everything was very promising when we started looking at it. Again, no infrastructure, no power, no water. But we can pull in temporary power. We figured out how to do that at the Archer Road location. We're still trying to figure out temporary water and pulling in potable, drinkable water for our vendors and our performers and our animal performers. But the issue the big challenge that we could not overcome was the insurance requirement. The association that owns that property wanted us to include some items on the insurance we've never included before, like crowd control kind of additional licensing. They wanted us to include the alcohol licensing. There are things that we extend out to our performers. All of our merchants have to have their own insurance, naming City of Gainesville and the property owner as additional insured. All of our performers who are considered high risk, like the joust or anyone that juggles knives or anyone that deals with fire, they have to include insurance. We don't ask our minstrels or our singers to have insurance for those because they're not considered high risk. So those are typically exemptions on the city's insurance because that is already taken care of through other means. When we were working with the Raceway, they required that all of those exemptions go back onto our insurance so that we were covering everything. And we just simply, we did negotiate back and forth. At the end of the back and forth negotiations, we had reached a $50,000 ticket for the insurance, and they still had more requirements that we take on. And at that point, after we put those additional requests over to the insurance company said they couldn't cover what we were requesting.
They couldn't write us a policy.
No.
Okay. And so when you rent from the school board, let's say, their requirement is for $1 million policy.
And that is typically what we are used to. The Raceway required a $2 million policy, so they doubled the
Oh, I thought you said
amount.
50,000.
No, it was we would have to pay $50,000 to get
Oh,
that
I
insurance
see,
policy,
I see.
and that was without all the additional requirements that they gave us after that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Book.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple quick questions now, because I know there's a lot of people who want to speak, and I'd be very interested in hearing from them to kind of help inform, maybe some additional information. I support having the event. I mean, and it sounds like everybody supports having the event, which is what you said, Commissioner Engel. The mechanism of how it handles and whether it's 3 weekends and the location, obviously it has to adapt. For us to have it as a city and support the money, it's got to be adaptable. So whether the space is smaller, or it's less time, we're still going to have it, I think. But it just doesn't look like there's enough suitable components to make it work in the way that it was, for example, a few years ago. One question was, we never owned the county fairgrounds, right? That was a county. There's been a lot of information about the city sold and just to clear that up, county owned that and they sold it, and that's why we don't have it there, because it was great. I attended there many years too. That's accurate?
That is correct. Yes.
All right, so for us to do anything like Commissioner England had alluded to, you really would need a county-city partnership and sponsorship and co-funding to make it outside the city. I know I would not support us spending money to have an event that's many miles outside the city, and we're the main thing. It just doesn't seem fiscally responsible. Picking up where the Gainesville Raceway, yes, the back area is all training ground and it's many, many acres. I've been back there. Why is the front space not accessible to us right along the roadway?
That would be parking.
That would be parking. We would use all of the front space of the Gainesville Raceway is all parking area, and we would be able to utilize that parking. That was part of what we were negotiating and how we could park as many people as we would need to.
So without getting too deep into it, I would think it'd be worth re-exploring. When was it that we negotiated these kind of burdensome insurance requirements?
So this was fall of '24.
It'd be worth trying that again. They need events out there.
Fall of '23.
They don't have a lot of events that take much of their weekend space. The events they have are huge, and they do utilize for their entire grounds out there. But they have weekends available, and it would seem to me that if they want more activity there, the NHRA would probably want to work. So my opinion is, just for that particular location, it's worth us going back to talk with them on the GNV location. Are we funded? Do we have any other funding streams that are coming in to help us? Because we bore it all when we reduced cost to zero in the interest of having people come there.
So we do. We receive, there's a small amount that we receive from vendor fees, vendors that pay to participate. We receive a sponsorship from Visit Gainesville for marketing and out-of-county tourism, and some of those dollars are able to go to general operating costs as well. And then we receive a sponsorship from the Brewers Club, and then a very small amount from an ATM contract that we have.
Well, I thought it was great that it was free. Last 2 years, I was a greeter, a volunteer greeter, and we were packed. And I like the fact that because we're free, potentially the people attending the event can pass on that money to the vendors and stuff. That's, I guess, your hope also. On the other hand, it means that we're funding it. So that's enough for the moment. Just some context there. Thank you for the answers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Buck. So I have, again, a lot of thoughts, but here's a weird left turn that Mr. Mann may be able to answer for us. And this may be completely off base. How big is the Job Corps Center?
Mr. Mayor, Phil Mann, Special Advisor to City Manager. We were kind of discussing the Job Corps site. That's what the laughter was about. So the Job Corps site is approximately 40 acres. There's a large portion of the middle of it that's wetlands. If you remember where the old baseball field is, if you've been out there, there's an old baseball field. The area between the baseball field and the campus is wetlands. And the other thing that we've been working with the federal government on is there's some contamination on the site, and they have yet to identify exactly what that is. But they would bear the responsibility for the contamination forever, but we don't know what we'll be able to develop around it at this time.
So there is contamination, but it is not the kind of contamination that's on the copper site.
That is correct, sir.
It's not a Superfund site. So there are levels to contamination. We're certainly not going to build homes on it, but might be able to park cars there,
Well,
or at least some of it.
it would be a possibility for us. The way the feds disperse the property, and this is one of the things we've been working with them on, we have to pick a use, and we can only use it for that use.
Right.
The use we've identified currently is for emergency management, so we could do combined police fire training. But we could change that to Parks and Rec space if we wanted to. Or we could put in applications for both.
And I know very, very well that I am giving heart palpitations right now to a number of staff members, both in the room and outside the room, by spitballing this and trying to think of different ways to solve this. But I think that's how we got to solve it is by bringing the stuff forward, and let's have the conversation, up here, because we've put staff in a situation, I think, where you're only going to bring us back ideas that are usable and that work. And I think we're going to have to step out a little bit and say, what about some ideas that don't seem to work or that might be problematic? And that's what I'm doing with this Job Corps Center. I'm not telling you to go figure Job Corps out. I'm just saying, as Commissioner Engel said, I think everyone wants this to continue. As I said earlier, it's not going to look exactly like what it used to look like. So let's stretch. And this may be, it just occurred to me while we're here that might be a stretch that might work. And here's why. Maybe we don't park exactly on site. Maybe we park next door to that great big space that is available with a partner of ours at the airport, that we could use some of their parking space potentially and shuttle. Just trying to think of different ways to get stuff to work, because I don't want to keep wishing that a perfect solution would fall out of the sky 10 years from now. I've been promising people in this room that we would find a way to fix this for 5-6 years now. And you're not going to believe me pretty soon that we're trying if we don't provide some evidence that we're trying. And I know that staff is trying really, really hard, but I also know that staff is unlikely to bring us ideas that are shaky. Because you want to bring us ideas that work, and that's just part of the dynamic here. So I want to put some of that out there that we are interested in hearing shaky ideas and figuring out how we can help you make them work. I like the idea of going back to the Gainesville Raceway also. I didn't have any other questions for you, Mr. Mann. Yes, it would cost us a lot more to go to the Raceway. Maybe that means we have to charge a different ticket price. And I know nobody wants to hear that either, but we want to get it solved. And if solving it means it's $25 and not 20, then maybe that's what it is. Maybe somebody is willing to provide a sponsorship or 3 or 4. We didn't do sponsorships until we started doing the parade. Other folks in our community ask for sponsorships. There's a way for us to do that too. And we got to be careful because we're a political organization, or we're political animals asking for donations. We don't want to do that. We want to have somebody who we contract with to do that, not necessarily us. I'm very well aware of those bright lines we need to avoid. But I want to think different, because I want to get this solved. Because again, you're not going to continue to believe me. The community's not going to believe me that we're trying to solve it if we don't find a solution. So I was going to get to you there.
That's fine. I was just waiting for public comment.
Okay. So that is some of where I am. If it costs us more, but there's a solution, then maybe that's what we have to do, and maybe there's some offset for that. I'm not saying we have to dig deeper in the budget for it. I'm saying maybe there's some opportunity to offset that if it's a permanent thing and we can grow it. maybe that's the solution. And I want everybody to be clear, and I want staff to be clear that I know you've been working on this. That there's no question in my mind that you all have been staying up nights trying to figure this out, because you don't want to have to try to squeeze it into Depot Park again, even though we may have to do that again this year. I want us to get to a place where it works for the community, and by community I mean larger community, because we're not just talking about the Gainesville area. We're talking about people across probably the nation who access this and who use it to make a living at and to just come to enjoy it. This is real economic development. This brings money into our community, and I don't want us to step over dollars to get to dimes and trying to save money here. So, having said all that, did you want to add something else?
I should add one thing about lead time. So we do have lead time issues with this event. If we go to a native site, I think it took us about 6 to 8 months to prep the YMCA to get through all the processes that we needed to do, get that site ready to be used. So we also want to keep everyone to understand there is a lead time. While we have 2 weeks set up and 1 week close down, there's about a good 6 to 8 months prior to that for us to be able to get a native site ready. Something like the raceway, much easier. We still have to figure out, water and electricity. Electricity is a little bit easier. We've kind of figured that out. But there is lead time that goes into that. So I just wanted you guys all to be aware of that.
Very good.
That time frame. So,
Thank you. And I can't wait to hear how the media carves up some of my quotes in this. It's going to be really interesting tomorrow. Again, I think we're committed to getting to this continuing. It is part of what the city of Gainesville does. Nobody wants it to not be anymore. So we may be shoehorning back into Depot Park this year and digging and finding partners for that. But moving forward, I think we're all committed to getting it done. We gotta give staff more comfort in the idea that we're willing to listen to some weird ideas. Commissioner Eastman, and then public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to piggyback on some of the things that you said, you mentioned the economic development. When I was on the Visit Gainesville Tourist Development Council, they actually did an economic breakdown of this, just what comes in from outside of Alachua County into Alachua County. I asked them to send that to me, and they actually updated it to our 2024 numbers. Brings in about $1,338,966 into our local economy and supports 662 jobs. That's not just people from the city of Archer coming into Gainesville. These are just the county numbers, assuming a certain percentage is coming out. So this is really real economic development, even more so than what this shows. If you're thinking about it just from the city of Gainesville, a lot of that, and they break it down by the industry, by beverage, food and beverage. I mean, talk to the downtown, the folks that have been around Depot Park during this whole thing, and they absolutely love the medieval fair, and it's starting to see it where it's becoming its own sort of medieval Renaissance weekend, where they'll have First Magnitude will have some of the folks that are going during the day, and they'll have them over there. A lot of the restaurants nearby. I mean, you'll go to Fourth Avenue Food Park and everyone's dressed up in Renaissance gear. I mean, it makes the downtown this kind of interesting, it makes it a very interesting weekend. I don't want us to give up on the idea that there might be solutions if we give staff enough lead time to figure out how to make Depot Park work, that there might be ways to continue to have sort of a win-win in all of this, in which you are continuing to be at Depot Park. I would like consider how we could ticket the event, but then there's surrounding areas that are in there. I called Heartwood Soundstage earlier today after seeing what they had done with the Alachua 200, where you had 2 stages, one at Depot Park, one just north of there in Heartwood, and they shut down the street, which is about 3/4 of an acre. You had that entire section that you could use for things. That's another 3 acres of land, 2.5 acres of land that could be used for that. That if we get creative, it's possible that we could have a medieval fair that, as Commissioner Ingalls said, doesn't look like the last medieval fair, but might be a future medieval fair that is very different than every other Renaissance fair. Like we have 2 or 3 that are in the state of Florida. There's not that many of them. Ours would be unique among that. It would be an urbanized fair that would still have a lot of that space and still have a little bit of flexibility, and we could bring some of that back. I would like for it to be financially sustainable. I think the hardest part is ensuring that that medieval fair continues forward when we're constantly putting away $130,000. We need to continue to pay vendors an amount that makes it so we're getting good performers coming in. We need to, or the performances. We need to make sure that all of this is that we're keeping up that quality and that we're not pinching pennies today while not having as good of a fair in the future. And that's what ticket sales help out with. But I'm happy to listen to the community on it. But as we're talking about other areas to put this, I also want to put out there that there's a lot of downtown business owners that are excited, a lot of folks that love this being in downtown, and I think there might be a way to make it work that would be unique, since we're putting out big ideas here, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. And I got to tell you, I had a great time on all 4 days of the medieval fair at Depot Park the last 2 years. I enjoyed the heck out of that. And the idea of investing $130,000 and getting $1.5 million economic development return is pretty sweet. So, Ms. Gonzalez.
Hi, Mayor, Commissioners. First off, I'd like to say thank you to all of you for the support for the festival. It is something, my staff does value, I myself value, and the community by far values. So thank you for that support. What we're seeking here today really is to see how the commission, the mayor, and even city manager can help us in getting the county as being part of co-sponsoring or partnering together to do this, to fund this. And even if it's to say it's 130 now, to continue what we're doing at Depot. And yes, we will continue to look at ways to enhance and do things differently to continue growing it while we finalize and get to a site. We hear the recommendations of now, hey, go outside the box. We have that prepared. We're excited to bring a lot of those go outside the box moments. That's exciting for us to hear as well. So that's something we're prepared to come back to you all to do in the time being right now is being that we've exhausted our funding to have it this year. It comes around January and that's going to come quick. So we want to make sure that we can start taking the steps now to seeing how we can get to that funding for now. And even if it's at Depot Park, but also in considering Depot Park and how we grow, we also always have to keep in mind that that is still a brownfield. So we're very limited to what we can do on that property. So the jousting is something that happens to go out the door with there because it's a brownfield. And local areas like Hartwood would be, we can ask and check and say, hey, maybe in your parking spot here, if that's a feasible location to kind of include it, but it kind of takes, it depends on how the element is. So it's not to say we don't have the conversations, we do, and I love the out-of-the-box thinking, and we're going to continue doing those efforts. But yeah, I just wanted everybody to know that a lot of what we're asking here is to say, how can we get the county involved in some of the funding as well? Because we do bring in economic impact, not just citywide, but countywide as well.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Commissioner Engel, and then we'll go to the public.
Actually, press that again to try and turn it off. So
Okay.
let the public go ahead and stuff.
Okay. Very good. Excellent. Okay. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we have quite a few signed up, so I'm going to call them three at a time so that you know who's coming up after the next speaker. We have Jordan Borselman, Mrs. Darren Page, and then Donald Shepard.
So as you come up, I will tell you that come on up. The little box on the lectern there has green, yellow, and red light. You have 3 minutes, and I'm going to try to keep everybody pretty tight on that. You don't have to use 3 minutes. That's just as much as you can use. If it's a green light, you got plenty of time. Yellow light, start wrapping up. Red light, expect me to ask you to stop. So, yes, sir.
Sounds good. All right. Well, this is great. Like all my notes that I was going to give are out because we've touched on them, we've explored them, and it seems like everybody really wants this thing to happen. So that's great. I'm a vendor there, and it was a huge part of my business. You've probably already read several of my emails about that. That's me. Nice to meet you. And so, I'm part of this is me just trying to find a way to continue making a living, being an artist in Gainesville, right, in Alachua County. So to talk specifically about it being one weekend is going to be really, I think, tough on the vendor side of things. There's a huge amount of setup, like you're talking about with the fair in general. I have to put my tent up, and I'm just talking about my little 10 by 10 easy up tent. and my blacksmithing gear, it's about a 4 or 5 hour event. I'm then asked to take all of that down at the end of the fair on Sunday night when I'm already just blown out and tired. And that's really difficult to ask of your vendors. I'm local and I love the Hoggetowne Fair, so I'm gonna do it anyway, no matter what. But a lot of other vendors are gonna go places where it's easier. They're gonna go places where they're gonna make money because they're going multiple weekends in a row. And so I think a lot of vendors have, in loyalty to the fair, continue to show up, and not just vendors, but performers and the other people who make their living at this. But if it's going to be a permanent scenario, I think we're going to start seeing that folks are going to find other places to go. I can't set up my big tent because, like it was just mentioned, it's a brown site, so I can't break ground. If we start to spread out through the downtown area, which sounds really fun to me, but now you're asking these vendors who have all their equipment revolved around tents with stakes that go into the ground and that are 15 by 15, 20 by 20. It's more a carnival than it is an art fair, right? And so now you're going, oh, for this one unique event, now I have to invest in a whole bunch of other equipment, and it's only one weekend. Like, that's really hard for people to do, and I don't know that you're gonna do that. Like, I get that change is part of life and we got to deal with that. But I really think a solution is going to be somewhere, partnering with Alachua County and making this, somewhere else. I mean, give me the name of the guy who runs the Gator Nationals. I'll start sending him emails. You know what I mean? Like, I'm all about helping to do that work because I know it just doesn't happen, and it doesn't just mean I'm going to get up here and talk and then I'll walk away and let you guys do all this work, right? Like, let us know what we can do to help. We've been dying for it. I know I'm out of time here, but we've been dying to know how we can help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Darren Page, followed by Donald Shepard and Jordan Pukier.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? My husband and I purchased Waldo Motorsports property with the vision of not only hosting the races for the dirt bike community, but also to expand into an event destination. Prior to owning the property, the previous owner did host several concerts. And since we purchased the property, we also host a concert and host the Swamp Fest event 2 years in a row, which brought 2,500 people this year alone. That number grew from 1,600 last year. Our property offers 137 acres total, and with the unlimited potential, we also have 3 entries available. 2 are not being used at this current time. We offer 70 RV sites, and with 51 rooms. The Best Western Hotel is located just north of our property. Emergency exits are, of course, never a problem for us. We have the Alachua County Fire Rescue Station just 1.7 miles away from us. Let's see. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. We are located 13 miles from the Gainesville Airport, and that's about a 17-minute drive from the original location. As someone who loves the town of Waldo, it would be very remiss of me if I didn't mention the local businesses that are within walking distance from our property. The Waldo Flea Market, Toomey's Hardware Store, Dollar General, the Breeze Ride and Travel Center, which is also known as the Pilot Fuel Station, Dunkin' Donuts and the Classic Cafe, and Subway Restaurant, just to name a few of the businesses conveniently located right next to or across the road from our property. This would be convenient for the setup crews, the vendors, and the participants. And we are not limited in our time that they could come in, work, and leave. Let's see. We're already set up for food vendors offering water and electric. We have a gated location at our office, which is just west of the front parking area, that can be used for the crowd control when entering the event and also for safe and secure ticket sales. We also have just about every piece of heavy equipment you could possibly need to make changes to the landscape, to move something heavy around, or to perfect a space that just needs a tweak in order to make that space perfect. We are a community-minded business, and we want nothing more than to see the city of Alachua, the county of Alachua, and the city of Waldo prosper and grow. This aligns with the Forward Focus program for the Eastern Alachua County as well. And I have several other comments, but I'm gonna, because my time's out, but I also have a letter from the mayor of Waldo available for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will say, I'm certain that the mayor of Waldo would love this economic opportunity, but we don't work for Waldo, so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks.
All right, we have Donald Shepard,
Mr. Shepard, come on up. Let's keep.
followed by Jordan Pakir, and then Mr. John Humflett.
So I will ask that, knowing who's up next, you'll be ready to come on up, so we don't have to call you next. Okay. Mr. Shepard.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. This is something that is needed in our area. You can see the publicity of it. We need to take and support these people more so than what we, the public, can take and see. We don't see what they go through as far as setting up, as far as maintaining the events and staging it. These are things I'd like to hear from them, because they're the heartbeat of this program and the reason to come here. So I'd like to hear from them of what they have proposed to bring for us. Because you ever gone to one of these events, you don't want to leave. That's the truth. And when I was there, I've been there only one time, I did not want to leave. And then the rain had to come and ruin it all. But that's what I have to say in behalf of them. So let's help them.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Shepard.
Jordan Pakir, followed by Mr. John Humflett and Travis Harvey.
Yes, hello. My name is Jordan Pereira. I'm kind of new to this area. I've been working in not-for-profit event management, presentation, and I'm working with a new not-for-profit organization based in Alachua County for the Wildflowers Music Park Incorporated. I just want to say that an event like this is so obviously such a great and valuable resource to the community, and it would be incredibly sad to see it go. And I'm just totally open to any kind of discussion of any kind of options and helping out in any way I can, and our whole organization would too. So that's it.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. John Humflett, followed by Travis Harvey and Mary Rodriguez.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is John Humflett. I am the Vice President of Thieves Guild Productions. Name aside, we are the offspring of the local Gainesville SCA. We're the drama kids. We're the Jack Sparrows. We act the part. We do the stage combat. When I was a young boy, my mother took me into the city to see the medieval fair for the first time. I was there that first year at Thomas Center. I went on and off through the free years, through the thing. In 2020, I auditioned for a show directed by Sunshine behind me, and I've been a part of the Guild ever since. In the Guild, because of the fair, we have so many members that have met their spouses or partners or significant others. I've got 2 kids. Because I met my wife, they're a double legacy, and they've done their time in middle school and high school. Our kids, we get a lot of teenage and young volunteers, and the volunteer hours that they put in through us and through the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair itself, that goes towards the Bright Future Scholarship hours. That's, of course, required if you know that, of course. A permanent location isn't just for the fair. It's for Star Wars weekend, which I know Ashley's sitting behind me. I know you, Mr. Ward, attended last year, and it's going to happen again on May the 3rd this time. But imagine if there was a bigger fenced-in space where you could get the 501st costumers in, and not just a quick hour or two. Get it in. We could have lunar festivals. We could have different cultural events, because why not? There are so many months that are taken up with history that we as a city don't get to engage in. And if we had that permanent location, that would be great. I have faith in each and every one of you that you'll do the right thing. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Travis Harvey, followed by Mary Rodriguez and Ms. Ashley Ladnick.
Good afternoon. I've been sitting here listening to all this, and I've been trying to figure out how I wanted to put my thoughts together for you folks. And at the beginning, we had the organizations for homeless people and things like that. I come from one of those broken families, and I joined the SCA at 16 years of age. And turning 50 this year, I have a business because of joining the SCA and working with Sunny at the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair 3 or 4 years ago. She offered an opportunity for me to buy out one of the older vendors, and I'm happy to be a part of this. I found my family in the SCA. I'm married to a woman because of the SCA, and she supports what I do at the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair to support this community. I've been involved with Hoggetowne since about 2000 when I moved to Florida. I've now become a business owner, as I said, after you know, the Hoggetowne Fair covers everything from pirates to early and late Middle Ages and to medieval fantasy. Hundreds of these fairs, or hundreds of the fairgoers, this is 200s and thousands of the fairgoers. This is a lifestyle. It is their hobby. Forgive me if I'm stuttering a little bit because of the chicken scratch I got here. It is something that thousands of hobbyists find, and I think there's an opportunity, like a couple of the previous folks spoke about, that it can be the site that comes to fruition could be, you know, something that is used by a bunch of other organizations. The loss of the Archer Road location not only impacted the fair, it impacted the businesses that no longer attend it due to the size. It also impacted American Hometown Veteran Assist, who was the recipient of the rental money that the city paid for that site. So it's not just something that is for the fairgoers themselves. I don't know if this is something that's been considered, but we have the wild spaces, public places tax in place, I believe, still. And quite frankly, that is an opportunity for a recreation site based on when you look up what that is intended for. It's intended for recreational uses and upkeep for our parks. I would implore you guys to take a look at that maybe and see if that's an option. Coming from an opportunity of looking at other organizations other than Star Wars, the SCA started in 1966, and there are tons of medieval groups that now are a part of that. You got the SCA, you got Empire Medieval Pursuits, Historical European Martial Arts, Daggerhair, Bewhurt. There are Southeastern Medieval Society, tons of opportunities. So I think there's an opportunity for you guys to really look at that. Jumping to weather real quick, I just moved or took the opportunity to go to another Ren Fair outside of the state. We had rain on 2 different Sundays. It's the first loss that I've had in such a way that I even wanted to wonder if I wanted to keep going with it. But those things need to be taken into consideration when we build out a property for it, that how are we going to deal with the rains and things like that.
I have to ask you to wrap up, please.
Yes, sir. I see it right there. Higher entrance. Oh, as far as higher entrance fees, just some notes I took. An opportunity to maybe make some more income on ticket sales. Instead of, if we sell it for 20, maybe we sell it for the weekend for 25 or 30, and we sell it for the entire 3 weekends for 40 or 50 bucks. There's an opportunity there as well to make extra money. That's about all I had. Thank you for your time, and once again, thank you for your service to the community. It's a lot of duress trying to make everybody happy. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want you to know that when you mentioned the list, the Wild Spaces Public Places Tax Commissioner Eastman reached under his bag and pulled out the whole spreadsheet of everything on that list. So it'll be ready for you when we finish with public comment. So.
Mary Rodriguez, followed by Ms. Ashley Ladnick and Logan Ladnick.
Welcome.
Hello, and thank you for your time. My name is Mary Rodriguez, and I happen to have been a vendor for the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair for at least 7-8 years now. I'm the owner of Aries Heat Candles, and the best part about being a vendor is that I'm never alone. I'm just one of the artisans that work at my booth. My booth is a collaboration. We're called the Mystic Merchants. Every year there's a friend or Oh, sorry, I'm distractible, and I'm nervous.
No reason to be nervous. It's all good.
Exactly. Every year I end up just meeting new artisans that just want to share their crafts and their art, and that's one of the best parts about the fair. With us being in a temporary location at Depot Park and allowing for free entry, a lot of people have been coming to the fair that haven't been there for many, many years. And it's given a lot of opportunities for larger families that can't make those ticket sales be able to actually come and enjoy and be able to have just an enjoyable weekend. So even though I understand the things may be changing and we're looking for our permanent location to where we can be able to fund our own accomplishments again, I'm really excited to hear how everybody, all the commissioners, you yourself, Mayor, are just positive and standing behind the fair. We may need some assistance this year of getting things going for the 130,000. But in the long run, we're inspiring all of Gainesville. We're inspiring all the kids to be that next vendor at the medieval fair. My niece has been my right-hand girl, helping me. She's developed so many, she doesn't know how to talk to strangers now. She's a salesperson. She's found herself and her own art. And she's actually going to be, she's a senior now, and she's going to Ringling College. I mean, she was just this big running around in her little cloak that I made from Joann's. And now she's just this young woman who's just been inspired by all the different sort of artisans she's seen, and it's just really inspired her. So I'm very happy to hear about your guys' positivity. Thank you so much for your time, and yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thanks.
Goodbye.
Ms. Ashley Ladnick, followed by Logan Ladnick and Jordan Claypool.
Well,
Good afternoon, Mayor Ward, Commissioners. My name is Ashley Ladnick. I had the distinct privilege and honor of being the director of the Living Chessboard Show for the past 2 years at Depot Park. If you guys got to come out and see the Living Chessboard with those crazy people playing human chess, I was the one who was wrangling all of those cats. I want to, first of all, thank all of you for all of your support for the fair. I was going to come up here and tell you about why it's so great and why it should continue, but you already know that. I will try to implore each and every one of you to look at a more permanent site. We, as our organization, we have not been able to put up our full set because of the groundwater site that Depot Park is. Part of the magic of the medieval fair is getting to transport to a different time and place. Not being able to tent, not being able to stake our tents, not being able to have that illusion for the audience does kind of pull them out a bit. It's a little bit hard to stay in the 1100s when you have cars zipping by you and you can very clearly see them. So I please implore you, in order to keep, not that it has to be different or the same as it was at the fairground site, but try to keep the magic as it moves forward and it evolves and it changes. So that's my one thing. John Humpler already spoke about our community and how great we are in helping kids get over their fears. We have a lot of teenagers that come in, they've never done anything like this, and they're performing in front of 5,000 people crowds. So I can say that this is something that the community needs. This is something that the community wants, and I hope that you all fight hard for it, just like we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Logan Ladnick, followed by Jordan Claypool and Bonnie Kelly.
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, esteemed commissioners, I had a lot of other things to say. I had a 3-minute blurb timed out, written, and most of it doesn't matter after hearing a lot of the support. I would encourage maybe trying to find a best of both worlds option in which we have an event at Depot Park, not at the same time as Hoggetowne, maybe at a different time, like halfway or 3/4 to Hoggetowne, so we can have a free event that gins up support for the full event. And that way we can still have that downtown development, but also finding that permanent site to then have the best kind of Hoggetowne we could have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jordan Claypool, followed by Bonnie Kelly and Rowdy Turner.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to do this, I guess. I also, like many others, had a lot of thoughts in my head, and as this went on, a lot of those fears and anxieties were put to rest. But I did just want to say that this was my first year, not just attending the fair as a participant, but vending at the fair. And it was one of the best experiences that we have ever had doing it. And we're excited to see how this fair continues. And I'm sure that the people who've been coming to it for years, both vendors and attendees alike, are going to be excited for it no matter what those changes may look like. And just to repeat what I heard with the first public comment that was made, please let us know every way that we can help. We, hearing the idea about just with the Depot Park allowing us to choose to buy a ticket, that's absolutely something that I, and I know many others in my own social circle at least, would have chosen to do. We would love to continue to support this event in any way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bonnie Kelly, followed by Rowdy Turner.
Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. I have been a vendor at the Medieval Fair now for 25 years with my family. It's a family event for us. My daughter, both daughters, now my granddaughter is my assistant and learning the business and wants to carry it on. I have also participated in other medieval fairs around the state of Florida. And when you mentioned about busing, Lady of the Lakes in in Tavares, Florida, they have school buses. It's associated with the school. They have a piece of property that was given to them by the school board, and it's a permanent place for them, and they bus in and out over, I guess, to a high school perhaps or something nearby, and that's how they take care of the overflow parking. Also, I just wanted to say that down the Tampa Medieval Fair called, I can't remember the name of it, Lake something or other, they move from Tampa and they rent space every year from the Withlacoochee River County Park in Dade City, which is near my daughter's house, and they charge $25 a ticket, and it's well attended. So there are, hopefully maybe there's a state park that would be willing to have, this event come in. Paynes Prairie, I mean, don't stop at, looking at all possibilities. This is a clean event. I've been to some other medieval fairs. They're not as family friendly. I think that this happens because it's run by the city, and who takes care of everything. I think everybody feels welcome. People come and dress up. They may spend $200 on an outfit that they're going to wear next year and the year after and the year after. People love to dress up. I mean, in this day and age, there's such little opportunity to play out your fantasies, especially in a clean environment where everyone is friendly, and it's just a wonderful place to be. So I just urge you to keep looking. Those of us in the community, I'm a homeowner, pay taxes. I mean, I don't know if taxes would be an option here. I pay for the library. Why can't I pay for other facilities? Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Rowdy Turner.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for having this meeting and allowing me to speak. Like everybody else, I'm pleasantly surprised that most, if not all, the board members seem on board with finding a solution. I don't come to you as a vendor or a performer. I come to you as a citizen who enjoys the fair and wants to spend his money there. My wife and son, we like to attend the fair. I'm good for $500 or more every time that I go. I like to buy things. My kid wants something, he generally gets it. And I'm not the only person in here who likes a good turkey leg from time to time. I've lived in 5 different states in my adult life, suburbs of Los Angeles, Chicago, Cincinnati, Raleigh, and now Gainesville is my home for the last 4 years. My first experience was Archer Road. I was blown away by the amount of people, the foot traffic, and the actual traffic it was to get in there. I just want you guys to know that this is a special event. I've never seen a city do something as, I guess the right word here would be cool in my vocabulary. I really am thankful that you guys are looking forward to a permanent solution and you're not willing to just let it go away. That's my little quick spiel. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Our last speaker, Mr. Mayor.
That was a great last speaker. All right, yes. Go on up, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Taman Zangari Thomas, I looked at Source and Solution LLC. I am being a guest here in Gainesville, and I'm experiencing all sorts of discrimination, immediate actions for various natures. I'm not going to disclose the nature or the motive or the manner for which has brought me here in Gainesville, but for some reason I'm experiencing at this point perceiving turmoil that are related to the path of action I'm forced to do. I'm currently in a state of need because I'm trying to reacquire my means of statement that don't reflect the actual state that I am. I'm receiving legal barriers for whatever reason that are reflecting in very segments and pillars and statues of socioeconomic structure of United States. How I said, one of the problems that I've sought here, I'm currently in my car, is the bathroom and the public space over here, for which the square opens at 7 a.m. For some reason, the bathroom at 9 a.m. Yet I've seen signs for which authorizes those type of timeframes or rules, but these signs here are not. It's a problem for me right now, currently, and one of the things I said, I'm seeing that the despaired, like me, don't have any means of showering, for which, at this point, I mean, personal hygiene and personal appearance is important. And I'm having difficulty at this point accessing any sorts of need, basic need, until I'm able to regain my means of sustainment. Thank you very much. This is my 3 cents. Unfortunately, I'm interacting with various actors and statues here in Gainesville, and say I'm part of the community, I can say, until, as a guest, until I'm not able to sort things out and move on. Please, I would like to make the council present about this discomfort they're creating, and these sorts of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our last speaker, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, with many comments, I'm sure, to follow. We're moving on to start the exit. This is not.
Oh, I'll say, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so back on topic. Many things to go through with this. Thank you to all the speakers. It's pretty rare that we go through a long list of speakers who all agree with what we've already talked about. I love that. Don't be a stranger. Commissioner Book.
Yeah, and on the last speaker, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't quite grasping. Obviously, I had some real vulnerability concerns, but perhaps a city staff member could go out and kind of speak and see if there was at least some support resources or something, because I couldn't quite understand exactly if he knew what some of those might be, but that might be helpful if a city staff member could do that. So here's a topic where many people spoke, and 0 are opposed supporting a Hoggetowne medieval fair. 0, and that doesn't happen for big events. The manner, what it looks like, and how long it is, and where it is, will obviously be the devil in the details. But the chance it's going to occur. May not occur in the mechanisms that we think is absolutely best. I thought it was particularly important that the city staff had put together Hoggetowne Medieval Fair pages and facts that when people were emailing, 90% of the answers, including this presentation, allowed us to already know what that was. And I think that's been extremely helpful. So to the both our marketing and communications and parks and recreation staff that did that, that's been gold as far as getting out information to the community. So I appreciate that. Is there, so now just a question, ramifications of Depot Avenue and Depot Park as it being more than one weekend? That would be my first question. And I know that's something that probably has already been, considered quite a bit.
Yeah. So Mayor, Commissioners, the ramifications is that if it goes multiple weekends, the vendor supplies and stuff stay there. So that would mean there's more money involved, right? So you need to get security out there every day, 7 days a week. The vandalism, things that can occur in those locations, we're at that point saying the city is responsible for their property. So that is kind of a risky thing because it's not a closed-in park. If the city decides, if you all decide to make a motion and kind of state that, we do close Depot Park entirely, and, figure out a way to do that and get the funding for that, then that's another option. That's where we can then do multiple weekends, because the whole park will be closed. Is there a way to probably do it where just the playground's open? Possibly. I think we can figure something out like that, but it will affect our trail access, because that is a connection trail for our city that is highly utilized. So we can look into that area to try to see how we can minimize that impact as well, but there is that possibility. But in order for it to go multiple weekends, we would need to close off that park.
All right, so it seemed like let's say it was on one weekend, then the question would be, is there the capability to at least provide the vendors opportunity to set up earlier and take down later, perhaps a Monday or Tuesday, just to give it, even if that extends the fair for 2 to 3 hours, that might, or hours, as well as kind of take that burden off them so they can really focus on what they're doing as it relates to providing for the audience.
Correct. And hearing the gentleman's comments earlier in regards to, the breakdown process of doing it right away, there is things we can work out to say, well, then you don't have to, we can work it to have it one extended day to do a breakdown and not that immediate evening. I mean, there's things we can work out to communicate with them better to see what we can do in regards to that one weekend. But in regards to multiple weekends, we would have to invest a lot more funding.
Thank you. So it's when you deal with special event management, it really what you talk about is venue and transportation engineering. And so this is really a difficult one in where we're at. I wonder, so I'll just make the comment as it relates to, how that might be done just for 2026. It sounds like we really don't have much option for January, February 2026. It's got to be there just from a lead and practice and plan and preparation time, right?
Correct.
So it matters whether we fund it is obviously the issue,
Yes.
as you said. And then for 2027, we're looking at the partnership, which might extend where our kind of our venue capabilities.
Correct. So it can be, if we get a great venue right away, that 2027, we would say, okay, yeah, we can do it at that venue, but it might be an extension to say 2026, 2027 we have there, but we finally got a location to build the infrastructure to do what we're doing in 2028. All that depends on how we find the location, what the location looks like, and what infrastructure is needed. So that varies, but our plan and hope is that we can utilize Depot Park so we can get there to continue growth while still trying to be as innovative as possible to increase what's happening there and improve what's happening there, like we do with all our events and programs, to get to a bigger site so that there is a natural growth and not like a shock value.
So for the existing site, knowing that our planning time is, we're already in that mechanism for, February 2026. I would think some things we could potentially look at to expand the site venue, which is, I think, what you were alluding to, Commissioner Eastman, is perhaps some minor road closures around there that gets you 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres. On the South Main, there's some small quarters that would not greatly impact the neighborhood. That's I always hold the line on what the neighborhood impacts are. But that's the South Main, perhaps the Southeast 4th Street piece that gets you some acreage around there would be something I would think is considered from a engineering standpoint. Extending the venues through some of our partners, so it would be great to see Heartwood goes medieval, downtown Bo Diddley goes medieval, the Knot goes medieval, and see if those venues, they benefit from the event tremendously, pick up pieces of the event, maybe. That's a lot of contacts. That's a lot of work for Parks and Rec staff, so I understand that. But these are pieces that extend space, that benefit immensely, and it might provide additional stage, for example, for some of these things. First Magnitude goes medieval. They're all directly around us. And to the extent that we could potentially use public transit from downtown and get people back and forth from downtown, I would support it. So those are just some ideas. Really, with the honing in on 2026, let's make it happen, even if it's one weekend, and really figure out what the 2027 gives us the time to really do well. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Commissioner Book. If we move toward making motions, let's try to keep them very broad and not box staff in too much and to our thoughts up here. We have a lot of lights. Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to figure out how we get to the 3-day weekend. I mean, it was financially sustainable. It was liked by the community. People are willing to drive for it. It's more of a regional event anyway, so people from Gainesville are willing to drive out to, further west to do that. I do get concerned. I mean, when I talk with Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs staff, I mean, part of it is also that you might have Sunny that is working on this throughout the year, but then the whole staff kind of picks up, and then they're going to go all the way out to Waldo. I mean, there does get to be, or Hawthorne. When you mentioned this to some of the other cities, I know I was at a recent Alachua County League of Cities meeting, and everyone swarmed me with this parcel here that they could use, and that parcel there, all of which are, would mean a lot of time in the car for a lot of folks from our staff during that time period. And so what would make, I mean, we almost have to figure out, and it's not going to happen in 2026, but if we want to have that kind of medieval fair, that's great. It would make sense for it could be a nonprofit. It could be, a mix of city, county staff. But it doesn't necessarily make sense for it to be city PRCA staff, right? If we wanted it closer into our city, which makes sense to me, we have looked exhaustively at this. We've been looking forever to try to find this kind of spot, and so it almost feels like we can go on the route of trying to figure out how you spin this off into being something different, which, as I said, will not happen in 2026, or you figure out how you make Depot Park really work. And there's benefits and downsides to both of them. I'll agree that the previous medieval fair was cool because you did feel like you were walking through a medieval. I mean, the immersion was really one of the best parts, which is true. You do kind of lose at Depot Park, but you gain, having it in that main area. I am kind of partial to figuring out if there's some way to make it a sustainable event at Depot Park within our downtown. In just having staff come back and take a look at what that would mean to expand that out to 2 weeks, just looking at the financials, looking at the logistics. I don't know if that would even be possible in the January 2026 to do it by then, or if it was just saying we're going to have to make room in our budget for the upcoming fiscal year, and then we could look at that more long term. But I think we're kind of at a point now where we have to figure out something long term with the medieval fair. I mean, we can keep saying that somehow 50 acres of land that has no trees on it will open itself up, but we have a map. We can look. We can see that's not there. Anyway, Roxy, you're up at the
Mayor, Commissioners. The reality is Depot Park ultimately is not going to give the effect of the medieval fair no matter what, because it's a brownfield. I can't get those tents pinned into that ground. We can't get the effects of what the medieval fair, the feel. I mean, and that feel is what brings the passion. It's what brings the individuals that they love it. And this is who they are. And to take that away from them and say, this is the land that we're looking at doing, I think we've gone backwards with that if we did that at Depot Park. I think Depot Park is a great placeholder so we can find and establish a location to do it forever. And I do agree that there is ways to do it 1 or 2 weeks, and it is funding. Whether we can do it in fiscal year 26 or not, that lies through the budget process. So I know the 130,000, we can come back with a different cost of what that would look like, and bring that up to the city manager to see what it would look like if we were to fence in Depot Park to do it 2-3 weekends. And give a variety of costs for that, so that can be part of discussion to determine what we do for fiscal year 26. But either way, the 130 is for that one. 130,000 would be for that one weekend.
Well, but what I'm saying is there, if it is fenced in at that, and people cannot get in and out at that point, that is the determination of whether someone is willing to buy a ticket. If you could just walk right in, I mean, and that would then make it a sustainable event over the course of time, plus 2 weekends, then spreads out your risk if it rains one weekend. Hopefully it doesn't rain 2 weekends in a row, right?
It would be a sustainable event without growth, without getting to the element of the medieval feel, right? Because what we're doing now is we took a lot of real elements of the medieval fair and try to give the public a free medieval fair that had somewhat of a feel with the same, with a great performers and dedicated vendors and passionate individuals that go out and do the chessboard pieces and everything, that love what was there to try to keep it here. But eventually we're going to lose them, because if that's not going to be able to grow to go back to where it was, where it is a medieval fair, that's almost impossible to keep those participants and vendors wanting to stay somewhere that we've hit the limit of what we can do with the location. So, well, closing it in and ticketing it, will that be that can be an element in helping us with revenue so that we can continue building in a location where we find, and we can do that and get there for a year or two. But beyond that, we are going to drop in revenue. If we were to ticket right now, I can tell you we're going to drop drastically in revenue, and we probably will maybe break even. The fact we have so many people right now is because we're not ticketing.
Yeah.
And we don't have the entertainment and the activities to offset the costs. So if I ticketed right now, I'm ticketing probably at $5 a person. I don't know if we would break even. That would be a flip of the coin. It's a different event. It is entirely, I'm sure some of you who've attended previous years to this, it is entirely a different event. It has the elements, it does have the feel, and a lot of that is because of the passionate individuals that go out there that love this. And those that want to experience it for the first time are now able to do that because it's free.
Even if we expanded out the space, I agree. The immersion is still the immersion, right? And you cannot have the immersion when you have a giant, GRU generating plant right here that was not around in the medieval times. The
old smelter. Zero imagination here, man.
I just want to add about the expansion of throughout downtown.
Yeah.
Any other event, Downtown Art Festival, yes, let's do it. I think it's very difficult with a medieval fair because you're spreading out that immersion feel. You are losing that. But on top of that, you also are creating traffic that will go towards other areas and not come back. So it's harder to ticket. It's harder to keep that space dedicated for multiple weeks. It's like taking Heartwood and saying, Heartwood, can we have you for 5 weeks, or can we have you for 3 weeks if we want to do 2 weekends? We're asking them to take them offline as well, because we have to we don't want everybody putting their tents up, taking their tents down, putting their tents up, taking their tents down. That would be very difficult. So spreading that traffic out that far and then trying to bring it back would be a little bit difficult. Downtown Festival and Art Show, one weekend, we can spread out. Yeah, we will, but yeah, getting creative and trying to find ways that we can do what we can at Depot and in the surrounding area. Yes, we're open to that, absolutely. But that long-term selling tickets and doing more than one weekend is a little bit more difficult with that spread.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all the questions.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Commissioner Willets.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so what I'm hearing is that long-term at Depot Park potentially doesn't work because we really lose the real experience, and that to some degree we've been riding on loyalty is carrying the fair of our vendors and some of our core participants, though we have this new group of participants who, because it is free, they can bring a whole family, it's a little more perhaps more of a casual participant attendee. So we've gained some, but that there's only so long vendors are going to be loyal to it. Out of loyalty as opposed to business opportunity or the sheer fun and the immersion of it. So I think that's why we have to move towards to me, Depot is still a temporary, it is a Band-Aid that I think has been, I think park staff has done really well the past 2 years. That's why I want to see it continue this year, find the funding, in FY26. I do have a question whether we have to find any of that in FY25, because it does start early, work starts early. And so I understand the idea of the multiple weekends. I would love the idea of multiple weekends at Depot Park if it would really help us not lose some of our momentum, kind of keep it together. But I understand closing off the entire park for, let's say, 10 days, 12 days. It's a long period. I know that the last time we did something similar with a Tom Petty something, some residents were a little upset about it. Of course, that was because it was a ticketed event, and I think that's where people's feelings around it is like, is this public or is this not? The park that everyone spent $50 million on through lots of different mechanisms. So I think I would love to see if we could do that. But I understand if staff comes back and just says, you know, closing it for more than 7 days, you know, to make it happen is going to be too difficult. I look forward to any opportunity with the county if they say we really could help with some of the sponsoring. If you want to extend your search by a mile round, because the county's going to pick up some of it, and the benefit is a little more county than city. I'm willing to look into that in the future. It sounds like for this year, definitely for this year and probably the following year, this is where we're at. Ms. Ramos, do we? Part of this is looking forward to FY26, or maybe this is a question both for Ms. Gonzalez. Would any of the 130,000 need to be found in FY25's budget?
No, it would be FY26. So currently we have some small contingency to get us through to the end of this fiscal year, and then FY26 is where we need that funding.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. So, Ms. Ramos, this would be, if we go forward with this, because I think we want to do this, and I will make the motion that we, or I'll let Commissioner Chestnut with the motion. But so then this would be a FY26 budget process at this point for the 130. But then obviously look for some county partnerships as well, but that probably would be going forward. I do think being more transparent about the need for finances this year for any of the participants to really kind of open up an opportunity for them to help fund it. Lots of other things kind of have a non-partner profit that like helps continue to generate funds. And so I would encourage looking at that opportunity. If there's, I don't know what it is, whether it's the alms person, you know, in a cloak and a cup looking for money, I don't know, right? Make it medieval. But something that would really let people who, they're going to come, they're going to spend money, and they would like to help, whatever it is, to help push it along. Not that we're going to raise $130,000 in an alms cup, but something like that. So I look forward to that, and thank you, Commissioner, if you're going to have a motion towards that.
Oh, ye of little faith. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. I'd like to propose a motion, and please feel free to add in. Recommend that the city manager return with recommendations on funding the Hoggetowne Medieval Fair for 26, explore partnerships. 2, fully explore alternative sites for the medieval fair, such as the Gainesville Raceway and the Job Corps Center.
Second.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and Commissioner Engel.
What was the motion?
Restate the one.
So I was going to say basically the same thing. You know, I think it's important if we want to have artists and craftsmen in Gainesville and part of our community, that we have spaces for art and crafts to be out there. This is an opportunity for a lot of our local artisans to really get out in front of our community and have an opportunity to really participate with they don't have in a lot of places. So I think it's very important for us to do that, and I think that's a great thing. I think having the medieval fair downtown at Depot Park is better for Gainesville. I think it's cool. It brings a lot of people down there. I think it'd be really neat if we could tie in a bunch of the local businesses, but I think ultimately it's probably worse for the event, and we'll just eventually kind of kill it off. You know, I feel like the medieval fair was in some real danger after county closed the fairgrounds. You know, the Depot Park was a great, you know, damage control, and I'm glad we've been able to keep this going, but I think ultimately we do need to look for something more permanent. Several people asked about what it is they could do. So I like to give people asks when they tell me they want to do something. So I got 2 things for you. 1, reach out to the county. Tell them also that this is important to you. You know, the more they hear from other people that they want to be involved, that gives them some encouragement too. 2, the reason that there's even a question about whether or not we're going to have $130,000 to throw into a medieval fair is because the GRU authority has cut $6.5 million randomly out of our budget. There's a $5 million hole we're trying to fill that shouldn't be there. It's the only reason this is ever even came up as a discussion, or there was any question about it. So please, reach out to your state representatives, state senators, tell them how unhappy you are with this situation, that the GRU is being handled by an authority that doesn't particularly pay attention to the will of the people or pay its bills, and that you want to see some action on that. So if you're asking what you can do to help, give me those two things.
Commissioner Engel bringing the heat. All right. You're not wrong. So we have a motion in front of us. You want to restate the motion if you would, Commissioner?
I think.
Okay, very good. Okay.
I think, the clerk captured it.
Gotcha. Is everybody clear on where we are with that?
Yeah, I just said all that to give them time to say that.
Gotcha. Commissioner Book.
Yeah, the motion's right on point. I think the chamber might be a good option for us to contact because they may have some funding opportunity. This is clearly, here's economic development that flows through this event. And I just, it may be something, so I just make the comment that as city staff are doing their research, let's talk to the chamber, and they may have different ideas that open up different funding streams that we may not have with them as a partner. That would be a big one. And then I would love to, in 2027 or in the future, see some medieval buggies running down the GNV Raceway as part of an event there, if that could ever occur. You know, maybe drawn by a lion or a tiger or something like that, but anything. There are opportunities elsewhere. So thank you for the motion, Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you, Commissioner Book. Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, and one more thing, if anyone there is a business owner who is interested in seeing 50,000 people with your name as being someone who is supporting the Medieval Fair, I think it's I don't know if we have title sponsors, things like that, like we have with the we do. So I mean, if I were a business owner who had a marketing budget and I was thinking, oh man, what would be a great way for me to get a lot of beloved support from the community, I would be thinking very long and hard about reaching out to our Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs staff and figuring out what I could do to help support the Medieval Fair, get money in the pocket of it, make sure that it continues forward and that it is more financially sustainable. And I feel strongly that our staff would find a way to figure out how to, put them in there, integrate them, ye old Volvo dealership or whatever within this. I think that would be, that's another way that I don't know if anyone here in this room owns a multi-million-dollar business, but if you are, I think reaching out to Roxy and all our staff over there would be a great way to do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Just be aware that we'll be attaching an extra E to the end of your business name if you get involved. All right, seeing no further lights, all in favor of this motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously with Commissioner Duncan Walker absent. Thank you all for your time and attention and the tremendous work from staff and for staff again for putting up with us and our bobs and weaves as we try to get this done. So thank you.
Huzzah.
Indeed. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we are on to 2025-300 GRU discussion with the recommendation of the General Policy Committee, discuss and take any action deemed necessary.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm not aware of anything new and different since we last had a conversation, although the GRU Authority did move to, we'll wait just a second. Yeah. So the only thing new and different, I think, since last week is that the GRU Authority did unanimously vote to pursue appeal. And beyond that, I don't think anything else has changed. Mr. Attorney, do you have anything to add to that? Or?
Mr. Mayor, nothing new. I know that the parties are preparing proposed orders. The judge will write his own order. I think the issue now is getting a transcript of his pronouncement so that the orders can his order will ultimately accurately reflect what he pronounced.
Okay, very good. All right, Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, and just to be clear, when I would like to hold back on appeals until we know exactly what we are appealing, where we are. But when in the GRU Authority, so they were successful in the lawsuit. They were able to invalidate the votes, about the 73% vote total that changed the charter. Correct. So what exactly are they appealing?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. And like I said, on the defense side, you sort of have to beat back every challenge. On the plaintiff or the offensive side, you just got to prevail on one count to stop the referendum from going forward. The count I think that I suspect that would be most, that the GRU Authority would most want to appeal is the count that assures that the electorate, that the elected commission has the ability to place a referendum before the electorate so that the voters can decide the state of our charter.
And just to make it clear, I mean, the GRU authority was successful in invalidating about 40,000 votes. So it was about 73%. It's about 85% turnout for this election. And so I am disappointed. I would like to see, some kind of, like I said in the last one, it would be great if we could find some way to not be going back and forth with all of this, where we aren't this kind of endless fighting and we were able to come together as a community. I don't think that that fighting specifically over the goal of taking the home rule away from the city, which is what this appeal does, right? This appeal is specifically, it is not to defend HB 1645 or the charter or Article 7 of our charter, which is already successfully defended. It is a more, I'd say, political question. Should the residents of the city of Gainesville have the authority to change their own charter? Should the residents of the city of Gainesville have the ability to have control over their own governance? And so I would hope that we could find some way forward. I am concerned about what these lawsuits mean long term for the employees of the utility. I'm concerned what it means for the finances of both the city and GRU. This could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in appeals. I'm concerned S&P has listed this as a credit risk for our bond ratings if this back and forth litigation continues in this way. So that's why I would like to hold off on the appeal, and I hope that the GRU authority works to find a way that they would have communication instead of more legal challenges. But that's not on us. That's another body to decide. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Commissioner Willets.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Eastman, did you mean hold off on appeal if the GRU authority chooses to not appeal because they're trying to win on point 1 or point 3? Or are you just saying let's hold pattern before we decide? Yes, we're appealing on the point 2, which was mostly about grammar or wording.
Right. I mean, I'd like to see what the actual order is. We don't have an order. We just have a verbal. And then I'd like to see if the GRU authority is willing at some point to have a conversation or be willing to find some kind of, if there's some way forward that is not just this litigation. If we're in an appellate posture and they are appealing, then we're going to have to, I think, follow through on that and go forward. I'm not saying that we don't appeal. I'm just saying that that the impacts of that I think are pretty large on the utility and the city, and so if there's some way to avoid that, that would be fine. But I mean, if the direction we're going is that we're going to be in appeals court anyway, then that's the direction we're going.
Okay, because that sounds like we're just where we were last meeting in essence. So yes, I agree. That's where we're at right now. But thank you for pointing out again their appeal, unless they really strongly feel about the business impact statement. Their appeal is trying to establish, in essence, in the entire state of Florida, the precedent that the ability to change the charter is far more limited than legal understanding, than we thought headed into it. And as Judge Wright, this judge has said, no, in Florida law, the residents, the voters can amend the charter. So thanks for reminding that. Again, this is not about us necessarily, merely our voters having the ability. It's any voter in a municipality having that ability to change their charter about something that perhaps the legislature has weighed in on, but that home rule still exists for. So thank you for reiterating it. And I've been trying to remember that it's not just about us. We're talking about a Florida constitutional principle that as of right now, we have won on that constitutional principle. We won. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Willets. I don't see any other lights. Is there any public comment on this one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have Donald Shepard.
Welcome, Mr. Shepard.
Apologize for not being ready. This is something that is a ongoing discussion, which is going to be having to play out in court. But they're seeing and I'm seeing no conflict of the issue because I don't see where the city has any ground rules footing towards this issue. The city is not show the courts or show the public where there's any critical ethics towards moving towards it being handed back to the city. And therefore, the bills are still piling up. And I guess that's all I have to say about that. I'll end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And,
Lee Blau.
welcome, Mr. Blau. And to be clear, the city did not sue in this. The GRU authority brought suit, yes, against the city. So, yeah.
Thank you. First, I had a couple thoughts about the judge's decision. I understood the judge also said there was some problem with the language on the ballot. And I also thought that items like that get judicial review for language and single issue before they go on the ballot, or is that just at the federal level?
State level constitutional.
Okay. Well, we've been living for a long time in an era of acquisitions and mergers. They're going around us all the time. But every time one company picks up another company, there's an exchange of value, cash, preferred stock, some assets of value. Okay, so you have a GRU, the utility was your business that has been acquired by someone else without payment. So you need to submit to GRUA and to the governor and the legislature of an invoice. Consider the full value of all the land, all the buildings, all the equipment and facilities, all the vehicles, the rights of way and the equipment in the ground and overhead, the hardware, the software, all the things that belong to the city. They say it's still your property. Well, you don't control it. You're not in control of how it's being managed or maintained or the yield of funding from it. All of it is gone from your control. So this is a business that has been acquired by another entity without payment. So bill them. Bill GRUA and the legislature and the governor for the full value of all that is GRU. They owe you. You don't just walk in and take a business and pay nothing. Make them pay for it.
Thank you, Mr. Blount. There are many, many avenues still ahead available to the city of Gainesville in this process.
That was our last speaker, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeing nothing else on this matter, let's move on to the next. Commissioner Engel, did you have? Okay, all right. Okay, yeah.
Member comment.
Okay, Commissioner Engel.
Oh, this is probably something of a can of worms, but thought it was something I should probably bring up. Over the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of talk about a young man who was picked up by GPD, taken to jail, hauled off by ICE, now back in Columbia. I think there's a lot of misconception on how all that went down, and I'm concerned about it for a few reasons. One is, near as I can tell, officers acted very reasonably. They ran into a fella that had a suspended license or an expired license. He'd been warned about it before. Ended up taking him to jail. That's a thing that, if you have been pulled over multiple times without a valid driver's license, that's the type of thing that's going to happen. And no judgment on that. I've driven on a suspended license myself. You forget to pay the insurance or can't afford to pay the insurance, and insurance company sends a letter to the state, license gets popped. Those things happen. And I think it is entirely reasonable and responsible to expect that if you get caught doing that, you're going to go to jail. You're probably going to spend the night in a pokey. Next morning, judge is going to yell at you. Maybe he'll make you stay in jail for a week. But mostly what he's going to do is tell you, you can't keep doing that. He's going to give you some more fines. He's going to send you back out in the world. You're not in danger. You're not hurting people. That's how our system works. It's the way it's supposed to happen. What's not supposed to happen is there be some minor offense you go to jail, all of a sudden the feds are dragging you off to somewhere. Some gulag in South Florida, some prison in El Salvador. God knows where you end up, depending on what's going on with this administration right now. So what would normally be a reasonable reaction from us to find somebody on this minor offense now has this huge consequence attached to it. So I feel like the feds have taken our ability to deal reasonably with our citizens, because any of these very small interactions with law enforcement can now lead to these terrible consequences. Gainesville we are a city of immigrants. There's people from all over the world that call Gainesville home. It's one of our strengths, in my opinion. And I think it puts us in a very dangerous place if our citizens are afraid to deal with our police officers, because what normally would be like a regular interaction or a minor offense could suddenly bring federal attention and detention and deportation and all sorts of other things that come along with this. I think we're going to be in some troubled times. I think it's probably going to get worse for the next few years before it gets any better. There's not much we can directly do about what ICE is going to do. ICE is ICE. I can't imagine they really care about City of Gainesville's opinion on things one way or the other. I'm not looking for a motion or a second or think there's any direct action we can take. But what I would like to do is for us, the city manager's office or through Chief Moya, take a look at our policies and see what we can do to maintain the ties we've made in this community, the trust we've built up in the immigrant community here. Because I think that could all be torn up very quickly if, because of a couple minor traffic incidents or some paperwork issues or something else that pops up, suddenly what had been a normal interaction with city police is now federal agents coming in and taking our Gainesville citizens off, or Gainesville neighbors off to God knows where. I don't know what we can do about it, but I think that how we normally interacted with members of the Gainesville community, we're gonna have to adjust, because what normally would have been a reasonable and rational reaction to somebody committing a minor offense is now gonna have a potentially much larger consequence tied to it. And I think that's gonna color our interactions with a lot of the people that live here for a while. And I think that's something that we can't kid ourselves about, and probably need to figure out if there are some policies or some ideas that we need to make sure we're all on the same page about when we're dealing with people. That's what I got.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Buck.
Yeah, thank you. And Commissioner Englewood, I'm just going to make a couple announcements. I almost feel like I should make them because what you brought up was a weighty matter, and these are really just a couple of event announcements. So I appreciate you talking about that. I just want you to understand. I understand that I'm putting out just a couple of events here, and it's not to reduce anything you said, because what you guys said obviously had a lot more gravity than we're talking about. Just so notwithstanding the Gator Spring game and all the events that surround that, there's a tremendous amount of events going on over the next 2 weekends. We're not meeting as a commission next week, so I did want to mention the Juried Art Show, Spring Arts Festival is out at Santa Fe College this weekend. A lot of arts and culture there. And the following weekend is one that a lot of us participate. There's many events both weekends. But the Keep Alachua County Beautiful Great American Cleanup is a week from Saturday at Westside Park. There's groups going out all over the community to clean up, and it's something we do. So I know I'll be on South Main cleaning up, but I just want to mention the Great American Cleanup on the 19th. And then I did ask to meet, I just would make sure that it's on everybody's radar, to talk to Commissioner Chestnut. And so I'm meeting with her on Monday, and I think we're just having a very informal conversation related to Northeast 8th Avenue and the project, but we couldn't do that up here, and we have to publicly notice it. So I tell you that so nobody gets caught unaware, if you didn't know, because obviously anybody can attend. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Book. Commissioner Willets, and then I'm going to come back around to Commissioner Eastman, who wants to make another announcement. So.
Thank you. This is weighty. Commissioner Engel, and I have something to say about towards that. I was going to joke about, I didn't know whether they left their swords and joust beyond the metal detector, or whether they could, I was going to ask the attorney whether they could bring a wooden sword, technically, if it made it past the metal detector. I had Commissioner Engel's point I wanted to speak briefly about. The other one was about parking on Southwest 17th Place, which is in front of a large apartment complex called Varsity House, previously that the university potentially was going to purchase or something for off-campus student housing. There's been continued issues there parking. It's gone on now over a year where people do not respect that is a very narrow street. They don't respect, they block people's driveways. They park around a corner of a bend that is dangerous. Department of Sustainable Development has there's another project development going in right on that same corner that will change a corner to a T. So the future will look a little different. I try not to bring up individual things where it's just one complaint in the community, but because I've personally seen it, I've seen it on a Google map, Street View, you can see cars parked. It's just risen in importance. I know that previously the resident that was talking most about this was talking mostly to me, but I know that now copied everybody and says, listen, this is just insane, the parking down there. And I don't know the solutions outside of finding in our budget a way to have another parking enforcement officer added into the budget that goes beyond our normal tight downtown core parking enforcement, so that someone is able to go out there on a more normal basis. I believe I forgot her name now, Captain, I forget, who works with traffic enforcement. Captain, not Young, is it? No. I'm sorry. Who's our traffic safety?
So it's Captain Summer Hallett, who is in charge of the traffic safety team for us. Yes, sir.
Okay, so they're aware of this, but they just cannot be down there all the time to see this, and trying to figure out a solution in between what is parking enforcement versus what is police. But I'm at the point where I think that we, the city, through city management, should have a conversation with Varsity House, because that's where all the cars are coming from in the end. Though some may be parking there to use a dog park, and they may not actually live there, even though that dog park is Varsity House property. And I just think this is a point where we need to say, you're not being a good neighbor to not just to the city, but to their literal neighbors. And I think we need to use any kind of diplomacy we can to say, listen, this is unacceptable. It's your residence. If their parking garage is completely full, if they need to buy extra parking, there is available lots nearby. Not that someone wants to permanently sell off. There are other lots that they need to be moving towards that. And so that street, which is, I've seen it. I've seen the pictures that Mr. Molina has sent. I don't know if y'all had an opportunity to see them. It is no longer a safe street for fire trucks to get down or ambulances to get down. Certainly not with any other car on it. And this is a city street that's only, 8 years old. This is not some ancient, downtown that, doesn't serve as a byway. Anyway, so it's an issue. I want us to, I personally think that we're there. I don't know if that takes a vote of the commission to direct the city manager, but it just, I don't want to bother a bunch of individual apartment complexes when there's, little issues here or there. Students do crazy things, but this is just to a level where we need the apartment complex to work with us to educate all of those people, because not all of them realize that blocking someone else's driveway is not safe. It is beyond rude. It's also illegal, my understanding. And they're just lucky that no one's backed into them, causing further chaos because the cops have to come out and insurance. So anyways, it's gotten to that level. And then the thing about the student who is now evidently back in Columbia with his family, I agree, Commissioner Engel, that things have changed in a way. What should have been a situation where perhaps someone was taken to the county jail and mom or dad, came in and fixed all the problems, made sure that their child, even though a 27-year-old, finally figured out, get all your stuff done, get your this, here's the money for this, let's get this all done. Because you're here to study, let's get you studying and get you graduated. Instead of what should be, a humbling experience where your family steps in and gets you where you need to be. Lots of college students get there.
it became a different kind of situation. And I trust that our GPD and other levels of staff are actually quite adept at understanding having international students and all kinds of immigrants and visas and work visas and green cards, because that's what kind of a city we are. So our staff is probably in Florida, particularly outside of South Florida, probably most adept at understanding different IDs, different work statuses, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if there needs to be even further training to further understand the question of, I thought you could drive in the United States with a foreign license. I think that's more of a like, well, you can visit. Yes, you can. If you drive across the border in Mexico, you can visit for a couple weeks. You can drive. That's perfectly fine to drive. But if you're here as a student, that's something different. So, to Commissioner Engel, the misconceptions, I don't think our staff has the misconceptions, but people in the community do. I think we need to, and I've been considering having a town hall where we have that opportunity to talk about it. Use my town hall opportunity to just make sure we communicate as much as possible what is city policy versus what is happening with the sheriff versus the state versus federal. Make sure people know, so there's as much clarity so that people understand so that there's that back and forth communication with GPD or Fire or whoever between all of our residents of our city, so they still get all the services they need, so no one's hiding. I would hate for now, particularly perfectly documented, students, immigrants, visitors, to be afraid to get pulled over and to not stop, to go drive off, to run from the cops over something as simple as a taillight, So I worry that the misinformation will become dangerous. That's what I've been fearing. So I don't know if there's an opportunity for us to do something. Our communication staff does a great job. They really get out, different programs through the city, but this is one where because we don't fully understand what the federal government is going to be doing at all steps, we haven't gotten out there, but I think something needs to happen where we have some communication. If y'all have ideas on it, I'm also willing, if one of the easy ways is that my next town hall is about it, then that's what I will do. I'll give that town hall over to that, so that we can have lots of different departments across the city communicate and try to push it out so that people get as much information about it and can call in or ask questions and whatnot. I'm sure we would get a lot of questions for that. So I offer that up there as one potential opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner Willetts. Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I agree with Commissioner Willetts, Commissioner Engel. I mean, I'll say that a lot of the stuff about detainer requests and a lot of those things were they were opposed pretty broadly by police officers across the country, both in jurisdictions that tend to be more pro-immigrant or not pro-immigrant, because when you lose that faith within your immigrant communities, it is difficult to get it back. And I would not want a loved one of mine to be harmed and the only person that is witnessing it is someone who may or may not be up to date with all of their papers. And so ensuring that I don't entirely know what rights folks have in order to come forward to witness things in court, to ensure that people that are victims of crime can get the justice that they need in case it is someone who is concerned about what that relationship is with the federal government. But that is a kind of, would you like to speak to it? Do you have, we don't have to go into this at the moment, Major Koenig. I just, that is what that is my concern, as well as just the kind of human element of, as you guys pointed out, the driving with a suspended license is one of those dumb things that should not descend into the level that it did. And I don't know what the future holds for all of this, but I know what our community has, which is that we're a community that has been open to folks. People come from all over the world to become educated here, and I want us to hold on to that and make sure that everyone feels comfortable as they can within this. So whatever that looks like, that makes sense. And then also piggybacking on Commissioner Book, where we talked about events coming up. On another positive subject of this weekend, there's a really exciting group. How Bizarre is a business that's in downtown that has really brought in a kind of a new creative energy into downtown, really brought in more hip hop culture, brought in more youth culture. They're expanding out their big festival that's starting this weekend. Tomorrow night they have a free event on the Streetery called the Big Block Party. And then for the whole weekend, right behind Luke's Bagels in that little section on Main Street, which you probably have driven by 100 times and you never noticed, that's turning into this big music festival. It's got The Alchemist, Pearl and the Oysters. Yeah, right behind the Knot. Yeah. Yeah. It's cool back there. It's got a bunch of weird old buildings back there, but it makes it a very cool little music festival. They put a lot into it. I'd recommend if anyone wants to see some of the cool up and coming artists and cool up and coming stuff that's happening in Gainesville this weekend would be a very good time to see that. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. I encourage everyone to get out to all these activities going on this weekend. I do want to bring some kudos forward to some staff members and other folks around the community. And remind anyone who might be participating in this that we don't just serve here in the city of Gainesville people who live in the city of Gainesville. We all, in addition to the 150,000 or so people who live inside the city limits, we also serve daily another 50 to 150,000 people who come into our community regularly. And we're also kind of responsible for tens of thousands of other people who have sent their loved ones to the city of Gainesville to be educated or healed at the University of Florida or Santa Fe College or one of our hospitals. And many of you probably saw emails from some parents of the University of Florida students, a dozen or so, who reached out with concerns about specifically about the homeless situation in the city of Gainesville. We all know that houselessness continues to be a concern in our community and every community, and we know that we're putting a higher percentage of our resources into that than nearly any community that I'm aware of, in an effort to try to help those parents understand what we're doing and how that's working and what they should expect. I reached out and had scheduled a Zoom with some of those parents before this meeting today, and Chief Moya offered to be a part of that. Major Karnick was on that call, and many other GPD staffers. Mr. Mann was part of it. More people than I even know were on that call. Chief Knowles at UPD was on the call. Sheriff Scott was on the call. I appreciate everyone who had anything to do with it. My assistant Jason Andreaccio was responsible for getting it all coordinated, and I am impressed with the level of jump into it and be ready to answer questions that our team at the city of Gainesville offered, and that the sheriff's office offered, and that the University of Florida Police Department offered for a handful of concerned parents who I urged them to make sure that the actual residents that they're representing, who are students at the University of Florida, got involved as well. But I understand why parents of students at the University of Florida would be concerned. My daughter's a student at the University of Florida. I want, to make sure things are in good shape for her and for all the students here. And in the process of doing that, I was so impressed with the way our team at the city of Gainesville and outside our team stepped in and said, yes, we want to be there to assure folks as well. Now, did we assuage all their concerns? No, of course not. And that's okay. But I don't know many other cities where that level of resources jumped in, are willing to jump in on questions for people who don't even live here. So I want to give kudos to everyone who was involved in that, and just let you all know the level of commitment that our staff has to essentially customer service. And I really appreciate that. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.